Arnold yelled and his sword began to crackle with lightning. He showed no signs of his earlier fatigue.
Get ready! Stoke the fire and prepare offensive spells. Chloe, if you can't fight, then get back.
I'll fight.
Very well. These aren't much smarter than wild animals. They should turn tail if we show them who's stronger.
This was a high-level hunter. He didn't even seem to waver in the face of a horde of monsters.
Tear him to shreds!
The rest of Falling Fog responded with a roar, and they took the horde of orcs head-on. A new day began. Just like the previous one, there wasn't a cloud in the sky. It seemed the storm had passed. Well rested, I got up and stretched when I heard a banging sound from the other bedroom.
Well, it's not like Crybaby's gonna have any interest in a kid like T. And this isn't a date, she's just his protection. I don't think I need to tell you this, T, but don't get any funny ideas just because he's nice to you. When you get back, I'll train you body and soul so that you never feel that way ever again.
I'll manage your outfit, T. Even though you're going as his bodyguard, your usual outfit will be a hindrance. If you and Krai can trust too much, then it will make him look bad. For both yours and his sake, you can't show too much leg. Regardless of how you might feel, the people around you.
Why are they causing such a fuss when we're just going out for parfaits? If those two care so much, they should just go with us. When Tino exited the bedroom, she looked quite different from her usual self. She wore a long gray coat that concealed the dagger at her waist. Her normal outfit made it clear she was a thief, but I wasn't sure how to describe this look. For some reason, her red ribbons had been swapped out for white ones, and the circles under her eyes had disappeared. Citri made a troubled smile when she noticed me staring.
This was the best I could do while ensuring she could be an effective guard and hide her identity. If I let her go in a skirt and casual clothes, then it would almost seem like you two were on a date. My apologies, Krai. I don't have many inconspicuous relics like you do. She's equipped with the bare minimum if you could do your best to compensate.
No worries. If trouble arises, then we'll just come back here. Unlike Tino, I was in my usual clothes and thus fully kitted out. From head to toe, I was equipped with relics that Chris and the other First Steps Magi had worked themselves to the bone charging. I was still useless, but I could at least serve as a wall.
I don't think I need to worry, but keep your hands off of T, no matter how cute she is.
What kind of person does she think I am? Even if she's joking, Tino might not see it that way. I was about to protest, but Citri shifted her gaze to Tino.
Listen well, T. If you lay a hand on Krai, I'll make sure such deviant thoughts never again cross your mind.
Citri's convincing performance caused Tino to take a step back, her face a deathly pallor. There was no way I was going to lay a hand on her, so it was even harder to think she would do anything to me.
Come back the instant you finish your food, okay, Crybaby? Then we can have our date after that.
I'll make preparations for the next leg of our trip, including ensuring that T can sleep very well. Don't be gone long, you two.
For reasons unknown to me, the two sisters looked restless as they saw us off. I had never seen Tino so uncertain as I led her through the vaguely solemn town. As you might expect for a town famous for its chocolates, the streets of Gula were filled with shops offering sweet treats. There were some with signs brightly proclaiming that they specialized in chocolate. I specialized in eating. Even though I kept it a secret, I loved sweet things. Heavy cream, sweet beans, chocolate. I loved it all. I loved it more than anything else. I made sure I always had a chocolate bar handy. I wanted to take my time and check out all the shops, but unfortunately that wasn't in the cards. I do down subsheen. That's takes of the rolls. I Fikmachizar always had a chocolate bar handy. I wanted to take my time and check out all the The raised flag had the town a tad on edge, but I was relatively used to it. In my early days as a hunter, chocolate would have been the last thing on my mind at a time like this. However, I was a prime example of how sheer experience could allow even the most incompetent of us to grow accustomed to something. On the other hand, Tino seemed to be making herself small. She liked sweets just as much as I did, but she didn't keep it hidden. Usually when we went out for sweets, her joy was infectious, but maybe she wasn't used to walking around a town when a warning flag was raised. Don't worry, Tino. I know you haven't left the capital much, but you see those flags all the time if you travel around enough. I can't even remember how many of those flags I've seen.
Huh? You can't...
And once we saw the flag, Luke or someone would dive straight into trouble. I would just sit in the back and wear safety rings so I always came out unscathed, but it wasn't easy to watch my friends get roughed up. But Tino wasn't the type to run headlong into danger, so I had nothing to worry about. Her eyes were darting around nervously, which was a bit different from her usual manner. I was, technically, the more experienced hunter, so I figured I should provide a good example. If you're still bothered by it then, Here, close your eyes and cover your ears, take deep breaths, and think about something fun. And if someone's speaking to you, fold your arms, nod your head, and pretend to be deep in contemplation. This was a technique I used to avoid reality. There was only so much a man could do on his own. There were plenty of other excellent hunters out there, so I let them take care of anything that I wasn't responsible for. Tino wasn't saying a word, so I got a bit ahead of myself and kept on rambling. Right, I've been thinking about this a lot. Tino overthinks things. She takes things too seriously. She's a talented hunter, but there are also plenty who surpass her. If she takes on too much by herself, then she'll just be crushed under the weight. You've still got a long road ahead of you, and I don't think there's any use overthinking things. And now, Liz and Seatree are with us, so you should relax a bit. You haven't looked well today or yesterday, and it's got me worried.
I see, thank you very much.
The rings under her eyes had disappeared, but she couldn't hide her fatigue. I pointed this out to her, and she looked away bashfully. A little bit of pep returned to her step as we strolled through the town. Our destination was along a major street and had a fashionable exterior. There were plenty of people passing through the street, but under the current circumstances there weren't any other customers. How convenient. This wasn't just an outing to get a parfait. This was also a chance for Tino to mentally recuperate. Liz's treatment of her had been bothering me. I didn't think she was subjecting Tino to anything too awful, but I figured that whatever it was, Tino would find it easier to talk about while enjoying something sweet. Good grief, sweets aren't my thing, but I guess I can go along if it's for her sake. We were offered seats with a good view of the street and ample sunlight. Just like the exterior, the interior was furnished quite stylishly. This clearly wasn't a place you'd frequently see hunters at. I was familiar with all of the confectionaries of the capital, but this still seemed like a place I could have high hopes for. Tino's eyes glimmered as she looked around. Bringing her along appeared to have paid off. I was letting myself bask in the cheery scene when she looked at me with upturned eyes.
Master, City gave me some money. She said to use it however I wanted.
I didn't respond. Does Citri think she's my guardian or something? I wish she'd at least let me pretend to be a cool master for Tino. Citri's meddling took some of the wind out of my sails, but that didn't make me any less excited for the parfait I was about to enjoy. I made sure to conceal my excitement as I placed my order. The sweet scent wafting through the cafe made me so glad I chose to leave the capital. This had all started because I was running away from that conference, but things turned out pretty well. Am I actually having a lucky day? Whatever's waiting for me at the capital can wait until I get back.
Master, thank you so much. I believe I've embarrassed you.
I don't mind. It's no trouble for me. And, besides, I'm always causing trouble for you.
Oh no, not all.
There was nobody better than me when it came to depending on others, but it felt nice to be depended on once in a while. Particularly Tino, since my influence was part of what drove her to become a hunter. I couldn't understand why she was so unwilling to rely on me. Really, I thought it would be perfectly fine if she did. We waited for our parfaits and, to little surprise, mostly talked about things related to treasure hunting. It wasn't really the sort of thing you'd talk about on a date, but Tino took things seriously. She was aiming to become a first-rate hunter, and I had experience, if nothing else, as a hunter, so telling her about my experiences was the least I could do.
Huh? You've never been wounded in combat before?
It's just because the rest of Grieving souls are all so strong. And some would put up barriers. I had safety rings. And not many attacks came my way in the first place. My mana material was a step below everyone else's, so I didn't stand out much in a battle. With nothing to do, I would sometimes just sit down and watch. In the wide world of treasure hunting, I was probably the only hunter who had ever done such a thing.
I shouldn't have expected anything less, Master. I could never hope to emulate you.
I didn't know why, but Tino's eyes shined with admiration as she spoke. I hadn't done anything that warranted admiration or was worth emulating. Her misdirected admiration made me feel bad, so I tried to shift some of it towards Liz. There's nothing praiseworthy about being unscathed. Instead, you should strive for the strength to keep going even when you're hurt. With enough effort, you'll even be able to master Evolve Greed.
I'm not so sure.
No, that relic is really strong and valuable. Just by putting it on it almost made you as strong as Liz. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. It's just a shame that I can't use it. Just how weak am I if that mask rejected me even after I put it on? No. Tino shrank back when she saw I was getting worked up. So, what I'm trying to say is that Liz's training might be brutal, but I think it's to your benefit. She can be strict, but I don't think she does it to bully you.
Huh? Oh. Lizzie's doing the right thing. I'm very happy to have met you and her.
Citri's not a bad person either. She's just a bit odd. Most alchemists are. I don't think she intends to bully you.
It embarrasses me when she touches me in front of you, but I don't. It's not like she does it all the time.
Tino's responses were more relaxed than I had expected. I thought Liz's pressure had been driving her to the edge, but that didn't seem to be the case given her current attitude, and she wasn't the type to lie. Huh? Was I wrong to think there was a problem? Is there anything bothering you? If there is something, tell me, and I'll handle it.
I'm quite fine. If anything, it's your requests that hurt the most. But I understand that you're looking out for me.
Did I do something? Did I do something worse than make her drink a liquid lightning rod and run through a storm? Sure, I had shown poor leadership in the past, but I never did anything out of malice. I hadn't meant to make her uncomfortable when I put Evolve Greed on her, and I didn't plan to make her wear it ever again unless she wanted to. Wait, then what's been causing Tino to feel so down? I haven't asked anything of her during this trip. As far as I can recall, I've been particularly harmless lately. I tilted my head when Tino's expression suddenly shifted. She stood up, noticed I was looking at her, and sat back down.
Sorry, Master. There were voices outside. I wasn't listening for them or anything, but they were loud, and Lizzie teaches me to always pay attention.
What's the matter?
How good were her ears if she was hearing things outside? I was next to the window and I didn't hear a thing.
Tino became red in the face, and a flurry of words began to spill out from her mouth.
I haven't been able to believe your words entirely, but that's because of everything that's happened, and something easy to you is life-threatening to me, and you were supposed to always be with me, I'm sorry. I just did something very embarrassing.
Her hands were clenched into fists and pressed against her knees as she tried to make herself seem smaller. Considering her embarrassment, I was really sorry that I had no idea what she was talking about. What I could tell was that her faith in me was abysmally low and that she looked really cute when red in the face. With Tino so worked up, the waiter lost their chance to bring our parfaits. Tino looked up with determination and declared,
I've made up my mind. I'll never doubt your words ever again.
Except I didn't remember doing anything to deserve such trust. Really, I was such a bumbling fool I didn't think I could handle all the trust. More than anything, this wasn't the first time she had said this to me. I'm sorry I've betrayed you so many times. It's all my fault. I don't think that's the first time I've heard that.
This time for sure. If you say a crow's white, then it's white. Your will is my own.
I think there's too much of a gap in our excitement levels. Well, as long as she's happy. I pushed back any doubts in the back of my mind, and was about to give my usual, yeah, but Tino cut me off.
Also, Master, I know it's not my place and I might not understand even if you told me, but I'd like to ask for the sake of education. It's about what those hunters were discussing. How did you drive those orcs out of the fort?
What's she talking about?
It's delicious.
The chocolate parfait was even better than I had been led to believe. A glass about 30 centimeters tall had been filled with ice cream, chocolate, flaky cookies, and then topped off with an almost gratuitous amount of cream. At the tip-top of it was a piece of chocolate shaped, very fittingly, like a crown. The quality of the chocolate was what you might expect from a place famous for its chocolate production, but the sheer volume was also extraordinary. I was sure Liz or Citri would have grimaced at the sight of it. However, what really elevated the taste was the information Tino had overheard. The orcs had gone somewhere. Even the best sweets were hard to enjoy when something was on your mind. I couldn't be sure why, but I felt really lucky, knowing that trouble had left in the same direction it had come from. I had proof that I could avoid a tumult as long as I kept my childhood friends under control. Good job, me. Tino smiled, I smiled. Everything was going well. I wanted to do a little dance, but I didn't, because I was hard-boiled. Instead, I just smiled silently. I didn't feel like I was going to barf. There's one issue, however. I don't think I'll be able to finish this parfait. I looked down at the dessert. I had a hidden sweet tooth, but unlike most hunters, I wasn't a big eater. I had moved my spoon at a considerable pace, but the pretty glass was still half full. Meanwhile, Tino, who ordered the same thing, had finished hers and watched me without saying a peep. Hunters tended to both eat a lot, and quickly I wondered just how she stored it all in that small body of hers. I'd feel bad leaving it unfinished. Maybe Tino will finish it for me? No, hold on. It might be okay with Liz or Citri, but I can't have my junior finishing off a guy's food. Traversing the harsh world made hunters resilient to many things a normal person might balk at. Tino might not necessarily mind finishing my parfait, but it might damage my hard-boiled image. Unless it was already too late to be worrying about that. Tino's black eyes stared at me. They still glimmered with genuine respect. If she's still hungry, then she'd just place another order. After giving it some thought, I tried removing one of the rolled cookies from the parfait and thrust it before Tino. My mouth hadn't touched it, so I figured this was more or less fine. Her eyes bulged, and she looked around.
Hi, thank you.
She eventually said, and bit on the cookie. Her face became red all the way to her ears. This was a side of her I didn't often see, and I somehow felt like I was feeding a wild animal, but I, too, would be embarrassed if I was in her position. Is it good?
Yes, it's very sweet.
She said in a small voice as she nibbled on the cookie. She really liked sweet things. I need to earn what favor with her I can on this vacation, and then make sure not to lose it. I was beginning to relax when a man with a large white hat and a white apron wrapped around his rotund body appeared from the far end of the cafe. He seemed nice enough, but I was also used to being surrounded by stern-faced hunters. He headed straight for us, his gaze never leaving us. Tino seemed a bit apprehensive.
Pardon me, I might have the wrong person, but would you happen to be the Thousand Tricks?
I had used a fake ID, and yet my cover still ended up blown. I didn't let my surprise show as I looked at his face. Just as I expected, I had no idea who he was. Hiding my shock seemed to work against me because the man smiled and nodded with satisfaction.
I knew it. I've waited so long for this day. I'm the manager of this cafe.
He sounded excited. He asked to shake my hand, and I just let it happen. He must have been the chef as well as the manager, because his hand smelled of sugar. I had been recognized by hunters before, but never had a civilian identified me because I was enjoying something sweet, not to mention he was so impassioned for reasons I couldn't figure out. Tino looked at him with wide eyes.
You're very famous in this industry. You're the legendary treasure hunter who's been to confectioneries all over the map. They say that a shop visited by you will be prosperous and happy. You get the moniker Thousand Tricks because you try every last item on the menu.
As expected of Master.
I did a double take. This was all news to me. My identity was supposed to be hidden. Why is it so obvious to this guy? I don't get why he's treating me like some sort of lucky fairy. This isn't hard-boiled at all. With this reputation, maybe I should stop going outside unless I have a very good reason to. I want to crawl into a hole. What did Tino mean as expected? What did he mean my moniker comes from trying every item on a menu?
I could tell it was you by your black eyes and hair, as well as the young lady with you. I was looking forward to the day you graced our establishment with your presence. But to think it would happen under such circumstances...
Don't worry, Master's already dealt with the orcs. You can relax. The chocolate parfait was delicious, sir.
Wait, I haven't done anything. I could live with this guy being grateful for my visit, but I couldn't let him be grateful for something I hadn't even done. That would put a responsibility on my shoulders. It was other hunters who fought the orcs, not me. Don't forget that. It's, just a coincidence that they left their fort. See, Tino? I haven't done anything.
If you say it's a coincidence, then it's a coincidence. My apologies, sir. Forget what I just said.
I see. Understood? If you say it's a coincidence?
In a mood that words fail to describe, I returned to the hideaway with Tino. I opened the door and Liz sprung on me, almost as if she had been waiting for that exact moment.
Welcome back, Krai. We've been waiting so long. Lizzie wanted to tail you, but I put a stop to that idea.
Excuse me? You were considering it too. Welcome back, Crybaby. What's that? Did you bring us a gift?
What a sudden shift in atmosphere it was. I put an arm around Liz and handed Citri the box we received from the pastry chef. It was packed to the brim with famous chocolates produced in Gula. If I had to accept gifts, I might as well accept the throne of the chocolate fairy. Tino's grin was replaced with a look both vague and expressionless. I had known Liz longer, but Tino had still been around her for a few years. You'd think she would know how Liz is around her friends. Liz grabbed my arm and rubbed her cheek against mine.
I was so bored I thought I might go after those orcs. I heard they caused some real damage, and it seems they've got that fort locked down.
Ah, Apparently, it's been emptied out.
What? How?
Just in case, Tino and I had asked around after leaving the cafe. We'd feel pretty bad if the pastry chef got hurt because he had been given bad info. In the end, we found that what Tino had heard was true. The orcs had indeed abandoned their fort. Apparently, they were seen scrambling across the plains near the town, but not attacking it. The cause was unknown, but it sure was a lucky break for Gula. If an orc pack started rampaging along a highway, then the Empire's highest authorities would get involved. That would dramatically increase the funds and manpower poured into resolving the problem, not to mention more hunters would gather to help. Attacking a fort nestled in a forest was grueling, but on the plains wide area magic attacks could be utilized. Our only misgiving was that a number of battered corpses had been found in the fort, almost as if it had been attacked by something. These sorts of unknowns always cause trouble for our party, and my gut told me this might be another one of those times. Will we be okay? Gula seems like a well-fortified town, but even still. Citri listened to our explanation with a grin, and then clapped her hands, as though she remembered something. Without saying anything, she looked at Tino and gestured towards a potion placed on the table.
Here, T, I've prepared a sleeping potion for you.
A potion to usher someone into a deep sleep. Citri's concoctions were synthesized with the intent of being used on monsters who were resistant to potions. They were far too dangerous for a human to consume. Surely that wasn't the sort of potion she was planning on giving to Tino. Citri, let's leave. Is everything ready?
Oh, so soon?
We've done what we needed to. And that was eating the chocolate parfaits. There were still confectionaries I wanted to visit, but that was hard to do when the name Thousand Tricks was so well known in the area. The matter of the orcs was also bothering me, and I was worried about Citri's hired hands.
Agreed. Without the fort, there's nothing for us to do here.
Not that we ever planned on getting involved with the fort and the orcs in the first place. Our luggage was all ready, but we hadn't fought any monsters, so it wasn't like we had much to restock anyway. Together, we all headed for the exit. News of the orcs must have spread because the town was oddly abuzz.
Sounds like the orcs were pushed out by hunters. Lame. I thought we might get a chance to fight.
She grumbled while carrying a large case next to me. It seemed she had been listening to the nearby chatter. She had completely forgotten about my restrictions on training, but I decided it was fine, as long as we stayed out of trouble.
Excitement was indeed the intended result, but it must have been insufficient if they were so quickly driven off by mere hunters. I'll have to make a note of it. As I expected, making it easier to disperse negatively affects the efficacy.
I, for one, was happy. With the orcs gone, we could leave the town without worry. I just wish the issue could have been resolved before we arrived. We passed through the gate right as the warning flag was being lowered. It must have been a rare occurrence because there was a crowd gathered. I chose to ignore it and focus on the proceedings necessary to leave, but I suddenly heard a crowd cheering nearby. The soldier processing me looked up with shining eyes.
They were the main exterminators of the orc pack. The rampaging orcs happened to run in the direction of some high-level hunters, and they wiped them out. They are heroes to Gula.
My eyes widened. This was unexpected. Citri seemed to share this sentiment. There weren't many high-level hunters in Zebrudia. These might have been people we knew. That's amazing.
Isn't it? It was a pack of orcs, and nobody knows why, but there were other monsters too, like an elemental, a fire one even. What a feat!
The hunters were amazing too. It was no small accomplishment to take down a surprise pack of orcs, but you also needed terrible luck to run into one. It was bad enough to be traveling on a collision course with a swarm of monsters, but it was almost hard to believe that they also ran into an elemental. I wondered what they did to get such rotten luck. It was almost as bad as mine. Within me, I felt both admiration, pity, and empathy. The orc pack wasn't my fault, so it didn't go any further than that. Citri nudged me with her elbow and whispered into my ear.
The fire elemental couldn't have anything to do with danger effect. Is this according to plan?
Huh? I guess so? I wondered what she was talking about. I wasn't the type to plan things out, and even if I made one, it would always fall apart. Needless to say, I hadn't made a plan for this vacation. While I puzzled over what Citri had said to me, the crowd around the heroes parted for just a moment, giving me a brief glimpse of them. I did a double take. It seemed like it had been a tough battle. The champions were roughed up, their armor covered in scratches and dents, blood soaked into their coats. Their expressions were exhausted, their gazes vague. Some were leaning against each other. However, they also had that special look you only see in people who had just fought with all their might. They were the spitting image of champions. But the most surprising thing was that they were hunters I knew. In and of itself, that wasn't too strange. Being one myself, I knew many high-level hunters. But standing at the head of the group, looking as though he might collapse at any minute, was Arnold, leader of Falling Fog. His imposing, to put it nicely, figure was battered and drenched in blood, making him look like a seasoned warrior. I was certain it was Arnold. Arnold, who had caused nothing but trouble in the capital. Arnold, who was one of my reasons for leaving the capital. I didn't know why he was here, but what a coincidence it was. Behind him was Ruta and her party, all looking like they might keel over at any minute. Just what was going on?
I get it. I thought it was strange that we weren't attacking the orcs, so I figured...
Let's hurry up and get going. Nothing good will come from being seen. I'd like to renew old bonds, but it seems they've got their hands full.
Oka!
I held my breath and waited for our processing to finish. It seemed like some bigwig was about to lead Arnold and his band somewhere. I kept glancing his way, checking to see if he had noticed us. Then his cloudy eyes suddenly seemed to catch sight of us. He looked dumbfounded for a moment and his mouth twitched. I quickly looked the other way. Did he see us? Maybe not. He did, didn't he? I was too scared to turn around and check. Luckily, our paperwork was finished and we were able to pass through the gate. He was tired. He probably didn't have time to be worrying about us. Just as I was letting myself relax, Liz gracefully turned around. She blew a kiss to Arnold's back, and before I had a chance to stop her, shouted in a cheery voice.
Oka, good job out there. Must have really worked hard if you're still kicking. Sure, it was just an orc pack, but that's pretty good for a bunch of rustics. I hate to say it, but we're real busy right now. We'll see you around, though.
Hi. Liz, don't antagonize him. Citri, let's hurry up and get going. I hurried off to our carriage, which awaited us just outside the town. I heard a familiar voice. An angry voice, like a pot about to boil over. I looked up, and there I saw... Arnold? It was Arnold, as I remembered him, and friends. His face was pulled taut and burning red, but he always looked like that, so I was certain it was him. In his right hand was a sword as long as he was tall and glowing yellow. It was that super strong sword he'd made out of the parts of the Thunder Dragon. Except, I wasn't afraid. I was surprised. I quickly realigned myself so I was groveling to the other Arnold. The naked Arnold stood boldly, with his arms crossed. What in the world is going on? The newly appeared Arnold had the aspect of a demon. Steam rose from his tempered body as it shook with rage. His companions behind him looked equally fired up, except for Chloe, who stood a ways away, pale, and simply watching.
Just how much of a fool do you take me for? Perish!
Arnold roared with all his might and came at me. I thought his sheer anger might be enough to erase me from existence. Blinding light overwhelmed me, and I heard the crackle of lightning as a golden sword closed in on my skull. The blow was deflected by a safety ring. In my confusion, I asked for help from the squishy Arnold. Save me, Arnold.
Mock me again?
That thunderous shout informed me, on an instinctual level, that the one with the sword was the real Arnold. It was a matter of their violent behavior quotient. Killiam dashed towards me, but some familiar hunters blocked it and Citri off from me. Arnold's right-hand man, I think that's what his name was, stood before the gray macho and snickered. The other hunters quickly got in formation.
Hold it right there. You're gonna have to get through us first.
Why are people always so quick to attack us? Calm down, real Arnold. We can talk this through.
Leak hell!
He was out for blood, a whole ocean of it. Chloe looked at us nervously. Arnold kicked at my stomach. A safety ring prevented me from taking any damage, but any successful blow from a level 7 would be fatal for me. Experience had taught me that I couldn't manage an attack from anyone higher than level 3. In a one-on-one fight, I couldn't evade. No matter which way I dodged, I couldn't even think of trying to counterattack. My only choice was to take the hits head-on. Instead of trying to dodge, I let my safety rings activate. The blade and its lightning were deflected by a thin barrier surrounding my body. It seemed Arnold's fighting style emphasized fewer but more powerful blows, but he still struck multiple times in the span of a second. But that was fine. I was no stranger to the strength of hunters. No matter how many times he stuck, my knowledge of safety rings kept me unharmed. Everyone stood frozen, just watching his flurry of attacks. But he couldn't keep that pace up forever. After making one last furious swing, Arnold stepped back. His razor-sharp eyes contained hints of not just anger but caution as well. Finally, I saw a chance to negotiate. Arnold was strong, but I had Liz and Citri with me, not to mention Drink and Killiam as well, so I could be bolder than usual. Do you feel better now?
Why are you still standing? I can't understand it.
Why was I still on my feet? A smile formed on my lips. Arnold's speed and power were extraordinary. Some treasure hunters had fame but not the strength to back it up, like me. But that wasn't Arnold. Even still, it wasn't enough. He didn't seem to understand it, but Arnold wasn't up against me. He was up against the history of safety rings. The history of a relic considered far and wide to be among the best defenses. Safety rings were absolute, unopposable. As far as I knew, a safety ring's barrier had never been broken through. Luke's strongest hits could cut through metal as though it were cheese, but even that wasn't enough. I was small and insignificant, but I had 17 eye-poppingly expensive safety rings on. Well, 10 had just been used up, leaving me with 7. That meant I could only take another 7 hits. But you might also say I was still safe from 7 hits of any variety. I had been attacked many times by scary-looking bad guys, and each time I had come out alive while resisting the urge to barf. It wasn't anything worth bragging about, but I was still a bit proud that an average guy like me had made it through hell and lived to tell about it. So I just accidentally bragged about it. Arnold, calm down. This is a matter of experience. I've been attacked lots of times and nobody's ever gotten a scratch on me. Arnold looked at me with eyes that could kill. It was super scary, but if I held out a bit longer, someone would come to save me. Liz, who had just been watching quietly, cleared the dirt and dust from her hands and smiled just as savagely as Arnold. If she wasn't enough, Tino was nearby. It would be 2-on-1.
Do you get just how far behind you are? Why do you think I went to the trouble of drawing an arrow to show you the way? Because I knew you wouldn't be able to handle Krai Baby.
It was you who drew that damn arrow.
You might not have found us without it. I'm so nice.
Wait, what arrow? Liz clenched her fist. At some point, she had put on her gauntlets.
But it ends here. Even if your hits aren't getting through, it still pisses me off to see you swinging at Krai Baby. Even if I'm supposed to be slacking off, I don't think I can do that right now.
The blood had gone to her head, her cheeks were stiff, and her eyes twitched. Also, my ban on violence wasn't an order to slack off. Just as Liz began to approach Arnold, something sent her flying back. It was Arnold, or rather, fake Arnold. But the creature I had assumed to be Arnold now had green skin and its hair had disappeared. What stood there was the roving ogre that had harassed us throughout the mountains. The ogre practically vanished as it dashed at Liz. It swung its whip-like arms, which Liz blocked and returned with a high-speed kick. The ogre contorted its body and evaded the attack. Swung its whip-like arms at Bonnie and, I couldn't believe it. The ogre could change its appearance, and we'd been fooled by it. Monsters capable of deceiving humans weren't at all rare, but I had never seen one so intelligent and capable of rapid transformations. Arnold, put away your sword. It seems that monster's been tricking us this whole time. I got a kick for a response. A safety ring blocked it. Calm down. There's no point in continuing to fight.
Don't joke with me. Who the hell would be fooled by that?
I would be fooled by that. I'll grovel, so just forgive me, okay? Can you even blame me for getting tricked by that fake? And it's not like I did anything bad to fake Arnold. Arnold let out a roar, as though in response, more lightning emanated from his sword with all the calamity of a thunderstorm. Nobody would be coming to help us. I was fine, I had my safety rings, but Tina was awestruck by the amount of energy being channeled by Arnold. She was close enough to get hit by a shockwave. I sprinted towards her. Running in these situations was something I was accustomed to. The moment I grabbed hold of Tino, one of my rings activated. Arnold's lightning had struck us with a loud rumble, something you don't get used to no matter how many times you hear it. It all happened in the span of a moment. The thunder resided. I was unharmed, and so was Tino. Arnold looked at us with bulging eyes. I don't want to brag, but I was confident nobody was as adept with safety rings as I was. Even in an age rife with powerful hunters, I doubt anyone used those relics as much as I did. Safety rings were broadly thought of as relics, which deployed unbreakable barriers to protect against fatal attacks, but that wasn't entirely accurate. It was a little-known fact, but safety rings had multiple functions. Safety rings had multiple functions. One of those functions was voluntary activation, which let you activate a ring of your own will, instead of letting it deploy automatically. A voluntarily deployed barrier could be adjusted slightly, something impossible with an automatic barrier. In short, effective use of one of the barriers could let you protect yourself and someone close by. I was a bit proud of myself, protecting someone else for the first time in recent memory. Satisfied now? Let's stop. There's no point in us fighting like this. The light faded from Arnold's blade, but his will to fight was undiminished. I thought it safe to assume he could only channel so much energy in rapid succession through that weapon of his. But if he burned through all my safety rings, it wouldn't take a powerful attack to kill me. I needed to buy myself time, just a few minutes would be enough.
Draw your blade, 1,000 tricks.
I don't have anything of the sort on me. I knew that wasn't what he meant, but I still chose to beat around the bush. There was no such thing as a pacifist hunter. Theirs was a profession that talked through the fist. If you couldn't show your strength, you wouldn't be given the light of day. If I actually had the powers fitting of a level 8 and showed that to Arnold, he would have been pacified much earlier. It was one of the reasons I wanted to quit being a hunter.
With all your strength, you still don't attack? Why go so far?
It wasn't that I didn't attack. I couldn't attack. Because I believe... I threw out that phrase haphazardly because it sounded nice, but Arnold still charged at me. He really couldn't discern mood or atmosphere. I knew running would be useless, so I let go of Tino and moved forward. Experience had taught me that I would just get hit if I fell back. However, if I advanced, I might put him on his guard and be spared an attack. Such was my survival strategy. I caught hints of caution in Arnold's eyes, but he didn't stop. Having faith in his strength when he needed to was what made him a first-rate hunter. He prepared to thrust, but just before he could, he was sent stumbling forward.
Not happening.
As Arnold stumbled, his blade bumped into me. Another safety ring was expended. Arnold clicked his tongue and quickly fell back while he reoriented himself. Tino had protected me. Her exposed shoulders, her worn, beat-up ribbons. Her body was shaking and I couldn't tell if it was out of anticipation. Her feet, however, were planted firmly on the ground.
Move! I have no business with you.
But I do with you.
You can't stop me a second time.
A cloud of dirt had been sent into the air, but apparently she had gone for a leg sweep. I had still been hit by Arnold's sword anyway, but I was impressed by her good timing.
I won't let you attack Master any further. He's always protected me, but that changes here. If Lizzie's not here, then I'll have to be his blade.
I felt bad for thinking it during her moment in the spotlight, but we already knew that Tino alone was no match for Arnold. She just wasn't equipped to deal with him. Even buying time would be a struggle for her.
You've got guts, but you can't win against me. Besides, is there anything about that man worth protecting?
Of course there is, but I won't say what.
There was no uncertainty in her. I was taken aback by the determination I could detect. Except determination wasn't enough to make up for their difference in strength, and Tino knew that.
You're right. I can't win like this. That's why...
Tino raised a hand in the air in it. She held Evolve Greed. I couldn't see her face from where I was, but I could see her hand trembling. Still, she held the mask with resolve.
Master, lend me your strength.
And then Tino thrust the mask onto her face.
O valiant warrior, does your soul yearn for my power?
Tino heard a voice. She felt a creepy, sticky sensation both covering her entire face and permeating her flesh. An unknown strength welled up within. Previously she had resisted, but now she accepted every bit of power, her beloved master at the center of her thoughts. She was no longer afraid. Her master's training was Spartan, but it was all for her sake. This meant Tino's only choice was to reciprocate his efforts. Her inexperience had prevented her from noticing something so simple up until now. Now, she understood everything. It had all started at the beginning of the vacation. No, it had started when the mask was first brought to the capital. She had been struck by lightning in preparation for her battle with Arnold. The training bind was meant to temper her spirit and give her the resolve to wear the mask. And luring Arnold to them was done in the name of her own growth. Arnold had been brought to their camp and Krai's farcical behavior had been done to draw out his full strength. It sounded so simple when put into words, but truly, how many people were capable of such a feat? Lizzie and City were most likely being kept at a distance, a considerable distance at that, in order to prevent Tino from trying to rely on them. It wasn't until after her master used his own body to protect her that she finally made her decision. Seeing her master protect her gave a bigger shock than the lightning that struck her earlier in the trip. Her master believed in her, and so he chose not to fight. Tino couldn't let herself depend on him any more than she already had.
Cast aside your trepidations. Do not fight it. Surrender yourself to chaos.
It was a disturbing voice. It brought Tino back to the last time she wore the mask. Master, that wasn't the real me. The mask made me do it. Seeing her strain her voice and make a disgrace of herself, her master had simply smiled and said,
You're fine. Calm down. I understand that wasn't the real you. Right. That was Mad Tino.
After that, Lizzie took the mask and casually slipped it on, only to immediately take it back off.
I can't use it. It said something about an unanticipated excess of strength and how it won't activate for security purposes.
The mask was nothing more than a relic. It was a dangerous and aberrant one, but it was still just a relic. It was her lack of experience that previously stopped her from suppressing the impulses of the mask. She had been unable to resist those novel sensations and was driven mad by it. But this time would be different. All she needed was unbending resolve, the resolve to use the relic of her own accord. I won't surrender myself. You're nothing but a relic that I'm going to use.
Oh, quite right you are. Nonetheless, for safety purposes, auto mode is recommended for new users.
No, I'll stay in control.
Very well. Switching to manual mode. Please be aware physical side effects may occur as a result of usage on an unaccustomed body.
A burning strength coursed through her body, her soul rocked by a sudden sense of omnipotence. But she kept calm. Her perspective was higher than usual. The tight sensations around her body suggested that she had grown. Arnold was dumbfounded. Looking behind her, she saw that by the power of the mask, her short hair had grown, its tips white as snow. Bringing her hands to her face, it almost felt like she was touching her own skin. The only thing that felt different was that a horn now sprouted from above her right eye. Last time she put on the mask, it only covered her face. This time was different. Her mind was clear. She had full control of her body and its strength was there for her to use. This was how Evolved Greed was meant to be used. The relic was a device that drew out one's latent powers, which meant more than just pure strength. Now, I can win. Tino thought, no, I will win.
Her beloved master saw her, and as though looking upon proof of pre-established harmony, muttered, Super Tino. As usual, she failed to understand him. Feeling a strong but ambiguous sense of satisfaction, she flew towards the trial that awaited her.
Oh, Master, have you ever lost a battle?
A mellow smile formed on my lips. Nope. To Chloe Welter, the scenery before her was both difficult to believe, yet also gave credence to many rumors she had heard. The Thousand Tricks developed Hunter's talents. He used his vast intellect to determine their specialties and then used near precognitive schemes to guide them into his trials. The result was first steps and grieving souls. Developing talent in people wasn't easy. Humans all had their own personalities and discrepancies. More importantly, they all had their own natural talents. It was absurd to think someone might be able to take into account so many factors, most of which weren't immediately obvious, and show someone down the right path. However, that level 4 hunter, Tino Shade, made it seem believable. Even if she lost, it should have been impossible for a level 4 to even put up a fight against a Dragon Slayer. It wasn't a matter of technique or whatnot. The difference in mana material was simply too vast. Yet the Thousand Tricks somehow made it happen. There was, of course, the power of that mask and Tino's own talents, but even still, what he did was ingenious. It was all calculated, all done in the name of growth. Looking at it from a distance, it was all proceeding smoothly. They had just survived 2 major battles, the likes of which were rarely experienced. For Scorching Whirlwind, and Chloe as well, those were valuable experiences. They saved a town and took down a monster that likely had a bounty on its head. The roving ogre had also been a notable adversary. The ogre's death probably wouldn't bring more people to the Gallus Mountains. However, the esteem that came with it would be a boon for Falling Fog, as they were still new to the imperial capital. And what benefit was there for the Thousand Tricks? Needless to say, it was the development of Tino Shade. She had the potential to one day join grieving souls, and Falling Fog had been used to aid her growth. They had been dancing to his tune. He exerted immense power and ignored all the rules. It was self-righteous behavior, but there was no way to resist. Nor was there any reason to. This was what you could expect from someone of a level obtained by only 3 people in the capital. What a scheme it was. To Chloe, the hapless smile of the Thousand Tricks had become something terrifying. Standing next to the ashes of the roving ogre, Arnold and Ake were having a conversation.
I'm really sorry, Arnold.
Don't worry. We can just catch them again.
Even after fighting the Thousand Tricks, Arnold's anger had yet to subside. It was only natural. Arnold hadn't gotten his closure. He might have been satisfied if he had been given even a glimpse of the Thousand Tricks' strength, but he didn't even get that. As a champion, he had to push forward, even if he had his doubts. It was rare for a clash between 2 high-level hunters to result in so little bloodshed. Naturally, hunters were careful to avoid any casualties, but nobody was even wounded in this fight, including those knocked out by Citree's potion. All this meant that the Thousand Tricks' vacation wasn't over yet.
They went and destroyed the damn carriage.
The carriage had been crushed when Liz hurled the roving ogre at it. The horses had been killed as well. It seemed she had been trying to deprive them of a means of escape. It was all terribly unfortunate for them, but they could at least consider it fortunate that nobody had been pummeled by the monster.
We'll rest for the evening and then head out on foot. Once we've got a carriage, we'll go after them. Chloe Welter, I take it you have no objections?
Before leaving, Krai had left them with a few parting words. Sorry, I don't have time for this. I've got to go meet up with my friends.
We head for Night Palace.
That's fine by me. Entering the dungeon may prove an issue for me, but I have orders to deliver this quest brief.
Arnold furrowed his brow as he looked at the young woman. Chloe found herself wondering what the crashing lightning would do once he realized what the Thousand Tricks was after. But she pushed the thought from her head. Arnold Hale was a proud man. Still, she had also seen he was capable of thinking things through. By now, he should have noticed something was off. But even if he had, his only choice was to press onward. Arnold was already caught up in the Thousand Tricks' trap. Escaping would require him to cast off something important to all hunters. Only someone less valiant might consider it an easy choice. Arnold started giving out orders and their camp began to take shape. Chloe smiled. It made her think back to when she used to aspire to be a hunter. However, as an employee of the Explorers Association, all she could do was pray for good luck. Amid pounding rain, we headed for Night Palace. Citree lowered her binoculars and looked at me with a troubled expression.
Oh, it looks like they aren't there anymore. I don't see a carriage. We must have missed them.
You're kidding me. They had gone to the dungeon for the sake of Luke's training. Once Luke was able to beat the boss in a one-on-one, they would head straight home. That was the sort of passionate and stoic man Luke was. So he managed to solo the boss of a level 8 treasure vault in such a short time? Well done. I thought it a shame that we had missed them, but there wasn't much we could do about it. After spending days surviving storms, commotions, Arnold, and whatever else, a disappointing reality awaited us. Well, that's that. Let's continue as planned. We'll take it easy, at a hot spring, and then head home. I sighed deeply and stood up so I could talk to Black, White, and Gray. It all began with 2 bandits in an impoverished country at the fringes of the continent. They had no weapons, no capital, not even food to eat. All they had was their might and intelligence. One of them was strong, the other clever, and that was worth a fortune. By absorbing other bandit squads into their own and acquiring patrons, they expanded rapidly. They broke free of their tiny homeland and spread across the continent, plundering wherever they pleased. Their strength saved them from defeat. Their cleverness saved them from deet. Their bandit squad symbol was the first thing they ever stole. A barrel, the type used to store alcohol. Bandit squad barrel. What had started as just 2 people had become a menace feared throughout the land. They had 3 iron mandates. Confrontations are to be avoided, success is to be expected, and quality is to be maintained. Therefore, with the information obtained from ninjas infiltrating the Gladys Earldom, Gifroy Barrel, chief of Bandit Squad Barrel, knew exactly what to do.
The time is nigh. There's no point in confronting a level 8 hunter.
They didn't fight anyone formidable, so they never lost. They always made thorough preparations, so they never panicked. They followed the ley lines as they traveled and always trained hard, so they were strong. At the chief's command, his subordinates all moved in perfect sync. They were confident, almost like an army. To those of us in grieving souls, Tino's shade was somewhat special. We first arrived in the capital when we were around 15 years old. You see, that was the age at which we were considered adults. We decided that should mark the beginning of our careers as hunters. However, in the holy land of treasure hunting, there were plenty of hunters yet to reach adulthood. It was part of the capital's culture. There were people who had been raised for treasure hunting and began training before we even dreamed of it. We had trained for just a bit in our hometown before coming to the capital. When we arrived, we found we had rivals both older and younger than us. At first, we barely had enough breathing room to spare a thought for anyone but ourselves. Everyone else in our party was desperately trying to get stronger, and I was struggling more than ever to avoid mortal peril. Tino was the first young hunter to make our acquaintance. I don't remember our first meeting very well, but I think we rescued her from some unwanted challengers. Back then, Liz and the others were always quick to resort to violence, so they were always getting involved in scuffles. Initially, Tino was just an acquaintance we'd run into on occasion. We would sometimes bump into her after our adventures, and sometimes we'd tell her tales of our escapades. I remember being surprised when she suddenly declared she wanted to become a hunter. I tried to stop her. I tried really hard to stop her. To me, she represented normalcy, but her mind was set, so she asked me how to become an excellent hunter. Let me be frank. I didn't think for a minute that she had what it took to flourish as a hunter. But I had a responsibility. Just like we had been inspired by stories told by hunters passing through our hometown, she had been inspired by us. It was our fault. She wanted to become a hunter. I made Tino into Liz's apprentice so she would get stronger, so Liz might develop some social skills, and hopefully to make Tino give up before she got herself killed. There's nothing harder than trying to be a hunter when you aren't cut out for it. Liz clearly wasn't the teaching type. She only knew how to get stronger by constantly being the first to shrug off her wounds and leap into danger. You might think it cold of me, but I expected Tino to throw in the towel immediately. Instead, she survived Liz's brutal training. She quickly outpaced me and became an active solo hunter. At some point, I gave up on convincing Tino to quit. If I was going to stick to being a hunter despite my incompetence, it wouldn't make any sense if I tried to convince someone with talent to resign. Sitting in the carriage, I realized how long ago that was. 5 years had gone by faster than Liz could hurl a stone, but it all felt so distant. As we rode along, I looked at the peaceful face of my sleeping junior hunter. "You've really gotten strong, Tino. I can't believe you used to be small Tino." The mask no doubt enabled her to take on Arnold, but her strength still made a difference. I couldn't have fought Arnold, even with the mask. Then Citri said something quite unexpected.
Indeed. However, if that's as far as she can get in spite of all your training, I can't help but think she might be better off quitting.
Huh? Her head still in my lap. Tino twitched.
She's right, Master. Tino thought as she pretended to sleep. It was an early memory, one she didn't care to remember. It was back when she was still small Tino.
Huh? You want me to train Tino? But, crybaby, I don't know anything about, restraint?
Tino adored her master, though at the time they had only just established their clan, so he wasn't called master back then. He has saved her dozens of times, and his name always came to mind when asked if she looked up to any hunters. She took every chance she could to tell people about him, and she wanted to see him every day. He was God, but a fierce and demanding God. At the time, Lizzie hadn't been excited at the thought of receiving an apprentice. At the time, Tino was still being held back by the nervousness and expectations that came with entering a new world.
No need to hold back. Tino's determination is genuine. Just make sure she doesn't die.
I'm not really qualified to be teaching people,
I think there's lots to be gained through teaching.
But I think she really might die if I don't hold back. Tino doesn't even have that much mana material.
Tino used to picture treasure hunters as being both fun yet strict, and her experiences had generally agreed with this notion, but her master took only a day to obliterate those naiveties.
Well, then why not just train her in treasure vaults? That way she can also absorb mana material.
That's brilliant!
In retrospect, Tino was certain that Lizzie was mildly shocked when she said that. She also realized that was only the beginning of her days packed with both struggles and joys. Master was God. He did not belong to the likes of mankind. No man could fathom the heart of God. Since being put under Lizzie's tutelage, Tino always felt like she might die at any moment. Hunters were built differently than normal human beings. Liz's teaching methods were a tad off kilter, but Tino would take a while to realize this. She never had the spare time to think, begrudge, or have regrets. It was a miracle that she had survived her sparring sessions. Grieving souls had a superb healer by the name of Ansem, so they considered any wound or injury to be just another thing in need of mending. In fact, some of them found it convenient that more injuries provided Ansem more chances to practice his skills. Every day, her master would say in a kind voice, "Treasure hunting isn't all fun and games. There are safer and more pleasant paths open to you. Feel free to quit this whenever you want." Surely he had said that out of pity. If she had given in to temptation and nodded, she would probably be living peacefully, not as a hunter. With all that said, she just wanted one thing, for her master to not be so hard on her. Keeping her eyes shut tight, Tina listened to City and her master.
Huh? Did I do something?
City remained silent.
No, it's Liz who's been training her. I haven't done anything.
Lizzie's training had been brutal, but Tino believed her mentor had at least been taking steps to ensure she wouldn't die. It wasn't fun, not by any stretch of the imagination, and that didn't change with time. Even still, Tino was grateful to her mentor and never once resented her. Probably, as an average person who hadn't been very active, Lizzie's training was transformational for Tino. The mana material she absorbed and her training gave her a body optimal for a thief. She also had all the essential knowledge drilled into her head. Any mistakes during practical training would invite more pain and bruises. Day and night, she was dedicated to becoming a hunter. Sometimes Lizzie wasn't around, but that just meant Tina would practice on her own those days. Playing hooky was unthinkable. After half of a year, that changed. One day, after finishing her training, her master came to talk to her. He always did this.
Huh? You don't take breaks, Tino? That won't do. Training hard is good, but it's also important to take it easy. It's a matter of having both highs and lows. You should rest at least once a week.
Tino could distinctly recall the confusion she felt when he said that. How could she become a good hunter by taking breaks? Looking back, the endless training had nearly broken her. By going so far, she had shown her master how resolute she was, which simply ushered in another phase of her training. Now real combat was mixed into her regiment. This wasn't training that involved real combat, it was plain and simple combat. If she had started as small Tino, she had now ascended to medium Tino. She would spend less time training, but she didn't anticipate her days becoming any easier. Her master probably just saw diminishing returns after training so many hours a day. He had said it was also important to take it easy, and he lived up to that by adding color to her gray life. Indeed, color. He clearly had good intentions, but any outside observer would see it as mean-spirited. Hope is what deepens despair. Tension can be noticed because we know what it is to relax. The color added to Tino's life both soothed her body and soul while also teaching her what's necessary to being a hunter. Her master loved to get people's hopes up before crushing them. It was probably his way of helping them grow. Tino didn't mind if he raised her hopes to the sky, but that wasn't the way of God. It happened on her first day off, an unforgettable day. She didn't know what to do with her first break in so long, but her master invited her out for sweets. Feeling like she was in a dream, she went along with him. Then she was kidnapped. Tina later learned that the culprit was a fearsome criminal who had been raising hell all across the capital. She had been devoted to her training, but only for 6 months, and she wasn't even an adult yet. She had no hope of winning against a pro. If City hadn't trailed them, something terrible might have happened to Tino. Sure, she was wrong to let her guard down. She should have been on alert, but who would anticipate being kidnapped during a date? However, that was only the prelude of her long journey to greatness. Medium Tino learned the important lesson that complacency kills. Lizzie had told her this any number of times during training, but true wariness can only be learned through experience. Tino would find herself attacked, ambushed, and poisoned. Of course, sometimes nothing at all happened. This is what her master meant by the importance of highs and lows, and he made his point perfectly.
Let This Grieving Soul Retire by Tsukikage, cast by Artale Studio. If you are interested in creating your own audiobooks, please check out our website at artale.ai. Now, enjoy the story. When it comes to memories, quality trumps quantity. Most traumas will disappear. Humans wouldn't be able to survive otherwise. However, fun memories aren't so quick to fade because they can motivate humans to overcome hardship. Thus, Tino continued to accept just about any invitation she received from her master. She held on to the hope that a fond memory would be made. Lizzie, by the way, apparently believed that even struggles and hardships would become good memories once you got used to them. Tino didn't care to find out if that was true. Tino's a good student, she's obedient, and there wasn't much I could teach her.
Well, Krai, that's true.
City had overcome her exasperation and was simply agreeing with Krai. She was currying favor with him. If Lizzie were present, she might have said something, but she was standing guard outside.
However, her master was right. In a sense, he hadn't taught Tino very much. He wasn't the type to instruct with words, but instead make his points through actions.
Tino naturally became stronger from her hellish training and fierce battles. By this point, the name Grieving Souls had become well known. Being their disciple incited other hunters her age to pick fights with her, but she never lost. Without noticing it, she had become stronger than any other hunter her age. It made sense. Who else had been tempered by God? Tino ended up becoming a bit full of herself. All that training had made it pleasant to utilize her strength. It wasn't talent, but layers of effort that brought her to this point, so she couldn't help but develop an ego. She wasn't going to compare herself to her master and her mentor, as they were both far beyond her. Then, one day, her master had a proposal for her. Would you come with us to the next treasure vault? This had never happened before. At the time, her master had been quickly clearing higher and higher level vaults. Uncertain, Tino asked him why she was being invited. You've gotten stronger. I think it might be time for you to join us.
How sweet those words sounded, Tino agreed. Not that she ever had a choice in the first place.
As she expected, she was put through hell. The treasure vault was one capable of giving even grieving souls a run for their money. There was nothing Tino could do. The other hunters were busy fighting and didn't plan on protecting her. She ended up devoting all her energy to running around like a cockroach. Thanks to this experience, Tino learned just how powerless she still was and that there was no meaning in comparing herself to weaker hunters. But even Tino couldn't stop herself from complaining after this ordeal. Her master seemed deeply apologetic. Sorry, I was certain you would be able to handle that treasure vault. I guess I miscalculated.
Her master was a god, and he was a fierce one.
But I was really off the mark this time. I thought of her as being a fledgling, but she's really a proper hunter. Tino somehow found herself a bit embarrassed by this.
Well, she is an adult now, but don't think you can lay a hand on her. She's mine.
Tino only just barely fought back the urge to speak up and object to belonging to City. She wasn't really interested in Tino. Her sights were on Krai. She wasn't worried about Tino being taken, she was worried about Tino taking Krai. But that was a minor difference as far as City was concerned. She was wary of Tino, and City was not someone you wanted as an enemy. She was put through all sorts of trouble, and it only became worse after she began delving into treasure vaults. She had been poisoned, struck by lightning, set ablaze, and had her limbs cut off. Tino learned the durability of the human body. She learned how to resist pain and overcome fear. She became Grand Tino. Her master might have still seen her as Medium Tino, or maybe he even still saw her as Small Tino. But she wanted to believe she was now Grand Tino.
Her training was still strenuous, and she still had close brushes with death, but now she knew that wasn't enough. To join Grieving Souls, she couldn't just satisfy her training regiment. She had to advance. She had put herself in peril. She was certain the key difference between her and Lizzie was the number of gauntlets they had survived. Her master, the god that he was, had given Tino trials to overcome. But Lizzie walked alongside that god. Tino had to think. Evolved greed hadn't just given her a temporary boost, it showed her what was possible for her. Super Tino was the future that awaited her. Super Tino would be the fruit of her efforts. This meant that her effort and determination still weren't enough. How deep the world of treasure hunting was. When Tino first decided to become a hunter, she only felt a faint admiration for the profession. Even after all the trials and tribulations she had been through, that admiration hadn't faded one bit. One day she would be the best hunter. Then she would walk alongside her master as an equal. She would do anything to achieve that goal. She couldn't let herself falter. By the way, what did Small Tino and Super Tino and those other names even mean?
Tino fortified her resolve as she continued to feign sleep. She felt a hand brush against her hair, making her heart skip a beat. Then her master said something alarming. Oh, maybe it's time she learned the Stifled Shadow? She might be able to win against Arnold if she used that. Tino froze. The Stifled Shadow was the name of a combat technique created by a famous thief. It let one move so fast as to not even leave a shadow behind. The trade-off was that it was difficult and risky. Very few people knew it. Lizzie held the title of the same name because she'd learned the technique from her mentor. The Stifled Shadow was such a difficult move that just learning it warranted a title. But it was also a move in which failure resulted in a ruptured heart. Overuse could also result in death.
She could die.
You're exaggerating. Tino should be fine. She might be in danger if something like this happens again. And, maybe Ansem could manage something if we keep him nearby?
Master, that's too much. That's absurd. Even in some can't heal a ruptured heart.
Oblivious to Tino's silent terror, City clapped her hands.
Very well. If you think it's fine, I suppose we can give it a shot. Don't worry, it might be a shame to lose her, but I won't let Tis' death be for nothing.
City, please try a bit harder.
Resigned to her fate, Tino opened her eyes and slowly sat up. I was on the top floor of the First Steps clan house in the clan master's office, a space for only myself and the clan's office workers. I had a grin on my face as I looked down at my desk. 5 small human figures, each about 5 centimeters tall, were racing about on my desk. The figures were so intricate they looked like some real human beings had been shrunk down. They were each dressed for a different role. There was a magus, paladin, swordsman, thief, and an alchemist. I was using robes and armor to cover up some of their minor flaws, but I was overall quite pleased with myself. While rubbing the warm bracelet, I made the figures tread quietly along the edge of the desk. These weren't dolls, which have mass, but mirages produced from my new relic, Mirage Form. The racetrack and small mountain on my desk were also mirages. At first, I had struggled to get shapes and colors right, but after days of practicing, I was successfully producing fairly elaborate mirages. It appeared the relic was equipped with a feature to correct for user error to a small degree. However, that didn't take away from my delight in seeing my practice produce results. It was a bit gaudy looking, and I couldn't be sure how much practical use it had, but as a relic used for fun, I could hardly ask for anything more. I poked one of the mirages with my finger, and at the same time made it move like it had fallen over. I made the other mirages act like they were protesting. Even though I was just manipulating images, I felt like the leader of a pack of small elementals. I couldn't stop grinning. I wanted to show off to someone, but unfortunately, I had to refrain. Being seen playing with dolls would destroy my hard-boiled image. Into the mix, I added a dragon small enough to fit in the palm of my hand, but then I decided to not stop at just one. I added another, and another, and another, until I had 4 dragons, all different colors, of course. I had encountered many dragons when I used to tag along with Grieving Souls. I couldn't be certain I had all the details down, but I was sure I had the general outline perfected. The dragons flapped their wings and flew around my head. I concentrated and tried to make their flying look more realistic. Creating mirages was difficult, but actually moving them wasn't too bad. The only flaw of Mirage Form was that its range was limited to 1 meter and 20 centimeters. If I could just expand that range, I could open up new possibilities for playing around. I wonder if there are versions of this relic with wider ranges. Because they were mirages, they were unaffected by physical barriers. I flew one through the window, and it disappeared into thin air the moment it got out of range. Not a very tough dragon. Not that it was the dragon's fault. I was grinning to myself and flying dragons around when the door to my office suddenly opened. I couldn't help but shiver. It was Eva entering the room. I didn't have any work I was supposed to be doing, but I didn't like being seen engaging in childish games, so I quickly erased the dragons. I must have been a second too late, because Eva's eyes were wide open.
What was that just now?
Nothing. I was just surprised by your sudden entrance, that's all.
Huh? I did knock.
I had been so busy playing with the dragons that I failed to notice a knock at the door. Maybe it was a bad idea to mess with mirages in my office. I didn't even need to bother asking what Eva wanted. I could tell by the excruciating pile of letters in her arms. Normally, Grieving Souls didn't have much contact with nobles when compared with other high-level parties. But for some reason, we started getting more correspondence after we got involved with Earl Gladys during the auction. According to an investigation by Eva, it seemed that somehow there were circulating rumors about how I had supposedly saved Lady Eclair. Never mind that it was Ark and not me who'd saved her. Hunters with dreams of moving up in the world or in want of connections might be glad to receive a letter from a noble, but unfortunately, I was a hunter with dreams of retirement. I would just have courteously turned down any letters I received. There's got to be someone better for them to bother. I could see myself fleeing Zebrudia altogether if things got really bad. These nobles really have no judge of character. I grumbled to myself as I shifted around in my chair. I then realized Eva's gaze was on my desk, or to be specific, her gaze was on the small mirages that I had forgotten to erase. Eva looked up at me. She seemed to be doubting my very sanity. The small people all hurried across my desk and jumped off the edge towards me. I cleared my throat, crossed my legs, and leaned back. So, did you need something?
You just gonna try to brush it off? What were those just now?
Eva came around behind me and peeked under my desk, but the small people were already gone, so there was nothing for her to find. I decided I would try to not only be hard-boiled, but also mysterious. I clasped my hands and smiled nihilistically. Even I have a secret, or two.
Well, I know that.
She tilted her head side to side and then nodded, as though forcing herself to accept the situation. Putting the matter aside, she cleared her throat.
We seem to have received a number of letters from the nobility. If you could give them a look over.
Eva's face grew stiff. On my desk was a figure identical to me, and it hadn't been there a moment ago. The figure was holding his arms above his head as though it wanted her to set the letters on top of it. Slowly, Eva's eyes turned upwards towards me. I gave her a nod and she carefully placed the letters on top of the mirage, but it was crushed under the weight. Eva's face was instantly drained of color, and she hurried to lift the letters up, but naturally there was nothing left. It was like the figure had been nothing but a mirage, and that's because it had been nothing but a mirage.
Huh? Oh, what?
Don't worry about it. Now, what about those letters? Eva looked puzzled, which was rare for her. I responded with a mellow smile. This is going to be really fun. They were in the southwestern decaying district, in a corner of a street that no respectable person would ever walk. Liz clicked her tongue with irritation.
This is the issue with magic syndicates. They refuse to meet you head-on.
Most magic syndicates survive by being cautious, though I think Akashic Tower was still a cut above in that regard.
This response was given by a person wearing a hood that concealed most of their face. It was Citri Smart. The two sisters were following conflicting leads obtained during the auction to track down the remnants of Akashic Tower. The golem produced by the disgraced sage Noctis Cochlear was a revolutionary weapon and had grabbed the attention of the other labs of Akashic Tower. There was no doubt that the bandits who broke into the auction storehouse were after the golem. They didn't steal anything, but that was because Citri wasted no time retrieving the golem once the bidding was over. They had investigated whoever bid against them, how the golem went from the Vault Investigation Bureau to the auction, and lastly, they had investigated anyone who had had contact with the golem's winner Greg. Liz and the rest of Grieving Souls were all used to dealing with criminals. They had often tangled with ghost parties, and this wouldn't be their first time crushing a criminal organization or a magic syndicate. But this foe put their previous opponents to shame. For one thing, there were only so many people who could make deals with the Vault Investigation Bureau. This meant that whoever their enemy was, they were connected with powerful people. Kneeling before Liz were 3 people, all with bodies clearly honed in battle. Even through their well-worn armor, they gave off the sort of overwhelming presence you only saw in those who had absorbed high amounts of mana material. Lying to the side were high-quality daggers and blades painted black. New weapons of this quality could go for over 10 million guilds. The imperial capital was the hunter's holy land, but as there is light, there are also shadows. Liz had chased the faintest of threads, leading her to these failed hunters. They were shady hunters who did discreet work of dubious legality and excelled at fighting other humans. Their strength was above that of the average hunters, and they occasionally proved a problem for the Explorers Association. But, if you asked Liz, they were just some washouts. She considered them losers who forgot what being a hunter was about, and chose to prey on weak humans instead of challenging monsters, phantoms, and treasure vaults riddled with traps. It wasn't that Liz didn't abide by preying on the weak, she just felt no fear towards wimps who only ever took on lesser foes. The 3 assailants had their hands bound behind their backs and paper bags placed over their heads. Their expressions weren't viewable, but their bodies trembled nervously, and the stench of blood and sweat permeated the narrow street. This was a band of professional hired blades who knew to never let their guard down, but Liz had no trouble beating them down, just finding them had been harder. However, after very carefully overpowering, binding, and interrogating their precious prey, Liz couldn't have them dying on her. They obtained unexpected information. The mercenaries knew nothing about their client. They had been contacted with a letter and paid in advance. If they had been able to steal the item in question, then their client might have shown themselves, but it was a bit too late for Liz and Citri to change their plan of attack. The Self's words didn't seem to be lying. Citri had employed an illicit potion meant to make them speak, and they coughed up their names, members of their families, work experience, and more. It didn't seem like they had any sort of resistance to these potions. After the past few days of investigating had ended fruitlessly, Liz was losing motivation.
And you don't know anything, even though you used to work for that bunch.
We were entirely cut off from other labs, and I wasn't able to stay as long as I had planned for.
Akashic Tower was built upon secrecy. Fundamentally, all magic syndicates were secretive, but Akashic Tower could be considered extreme in that regard. Magi, who had been ostracized for one reason or another, were all pursuing their own theories. Without contact, they wouldn't be able to learn anything specific about other labs. Coordination between labs was handled by specialists for that purpose, ensuring that members mostly only knew what their own lab was up to. As Noctis Cochlear's first disciple, Citri had participated in a variety of research projects, but she never left that lab. She had intended to one day reach out to other labs, but that need was dispersed by the facility's budget and grandeur of Noctis's lab. If Krai hadn't ordered her to come back, then she would be at that lab happily working away. If she had known things would turn out like this, she would have slowly gathered intel a bit at a time. Noctis might have known something, but he had lost his memories and was now in prison. Not much Citri could do on that front. They were dealing with a large organization that had long been considered an enemy to the world. Liz and Citri were strong, but theirs wasn't the right sort to take on this foe. It was clear Akashic Tower had its claws sunk somewhere in the highest echelons on Zebrudia. Investigating and showing proof of this wasn't going to be enough. If they were going to be dealing with people with connections in high places, Liz and Citri could no longer consider the law to be their ally. Not that there was any proof they could find. Liz let out a feline yawn.
I'm tired of this. Should we call it quits? We're wasting time and Greg's safe. Probably safe. I don't have time to waste on chickens. We've got the golem, so who cares what happens next?
Putting aside strength, a magic syndicate with friends in high places just sounded like a pain in the ass. If they weren't thorough, it could come back to bite them. And frankly, Liz just wasn't that interested. The risk and reward just didn't match up.
Goodness, Lizzie, you're too quick to lose interest.
If you want new materials, then we've got 3 people right here. Can't you just use them?
Liz nodded towards the 3 hired blades. Citri furrowed her brow and protested.
How are we supposed to transport them? We're sure to draw attention if we carry them to the lab. Besides, for my next experiment, I want magic.
Hell if I care. Can't you just catch some magi when you...
Lizzie, don't you know the party's rules?
Grieving souls had 3 rules. Everyone gets along. No harming the normies, democracy. If there's a difference in opinions, decide by vote. The clan leader had 5 votes, by the way. They were a bit much on the prudent side, but Citri considered them sensible. As long as that second rule existed, she would be unable to lay a hand on normies. Even when she had been a part of Akashic Tower, she hadn't directly participated in any human experiments performed on people abducted from the decaying district. She had left those to the other disciples. This led to her mentor, Noctis, regarding her as soft, but Citri had no choice but to accept it. From the side of the road, from windows, the locals watched Liz and Citri with cloudy eyes. While Citri seemed lost in contemplation, Liz clapped her hands together with elation. She had a good idea.
I've got it. I don't really want to, but how about we ask Krai Baby for help?
Citri wasn't sure what to say.
It's fine. Krai Baby's nice and I bet he saw this coming. If you're afraid to do it, then I'll ask him. This way we won't waste any time. I can spend some quality time with him and Tino will get some training in. It's perfect. Matter settled.
Without Citri saying a thing, Liz reached her own conclusion and crossed her arms with abundant confidence. Citri looked at her sister and began to think. Bothering Krai was something she wanted to avoid at all possible costs, but at their current rate, their investigation wasn't going to get them anywhere. Not to mention she had already caused plenty of trouble for Krai since becoming a hunter. She had a long history of going to Krai for all sorts of advice, and they were long past the point where she should fret over bothering him a bit. She mulled it over a bit, but she wasn't able to come up with any better ideas. She ended up at the same conclusion as Liz. This happened a lot, even when their opinions initially differed. When she realized what Citri was thinking, Liz stood up straight and pointed at their 3 captives.
And what are we gonna do with these guys?
We can't carry them home.
They were bound, drugged with a truth serum, and covered with wounds, but with time their bodies would recover. Their hearts were another matter. Truthfully, Citri didn't care. Her lab was far away and there were too many risks in carrying them home. They had made enemies of these 3, but for grieving souls, what was 3 more at this point? Citri put a finger to her lips and blinked a few times.
If we kill them and leave their corpses, people will gather, and by tomorrow, not even a chip of their bones will remain.
They spoke with the nonchalant air of peers discussing dinner plans. The captives must have heard this. Their breathing grew more ragged. They had gone pale, but Citri couldn't tell through the paper bags. Citri and Liz's nonchalance made one thing clear to the captives. Their lives were worth nothing to the two sisters. These were people who could kill with malice. The captives began to tremble when Citri's voice rang out with a revelatory air.
Hold on, Lizzie. Rather than kill them, maybe we can make them into our henchmen. I've been looking for underlings used to getting their hands dirty. They're not up to par for making another Killiam, but it'd be better to recycle rather than throw them away. Don't you think?
Huh? Henchmen? What am I supposed to do with weakling henchmen?
Well then, I'll just take all 3 of them. But wait. I need to ask for their thoughts on the matter. If they're not interested in being henchmen, I'll have to dispose of them. But Krai doesn't seem to approve of killing.
Citri went up in front of the 3 captives and gently touched one of their exposed necks. She thought she heard the sound of someone holding their breath. The paper bags weren't like the one worn by Killiam. They were just some grimy paper bags without eye holes. Breathing steadily, Citri posed them a question.
Hey, you 3, how about you become my henchmen? You can continue your work as hired blades. Of course I won't force you, this is just if you're feeling up to it.
Who'd want to be your henchman, City? Nothing good waiting for you in that life. You might even be better off dead. Right? Hey, answer me, you worthless bunch!
A bald man looked down on me grimly. Even though the soul soother Kana was next to him, her presence wasn't enough to balance out the man's ire. I knew that this demeanor was necessary so hunters would take him seriously. I knew that Gark didn't mean to look like he was glaring at me. Yet, I was a coward who couldn't help but retract when placed before him. It had been a while since I had been waylaid by the Explorers Association. Gark was the manager of the association's branch in the capital, meaning he was an extraordinarily busy man. I couldn't imagine a single good reason he would come all the way to the clan house just to get a hold of me. I also had a few choice words for Eva, who had led my arch-enemy straight to me. I was placed in the association building's reception room and spent a few minutes on the receiving end of a gaze that could kill a phantom. Gark slowly opened his mouth and began to speak in his usual intimidating voice.
So, Krai, I hear you went and picked a fight with the House of Gladys.
No, it wasn't a fight. Even still, I was prepared to kowtow.
Sir, you sound as though you brought Krai here simply to chastise him.
Oh, it looks like they called me here for something else. Color me surprised. I was too used to being scolded and Gark was too used to scolding others. Looking a bit awkward, Gark cleared his throat.
That's not what this is all about. Gladys sent us a thank you note. It's for you and Ark.
I didn't know why I was receiving a thank you note, but if it was to both me and Ark, then they should have snagged Ark. I was unfortunately quite busy. Truly, I was. Producing mirages was a deep art form. I have to get home and continue practicing my miniature of the Imperial Capital.
Another thing along with the thank you note was a named quest addressed to you, a named quest from the Earl. Despite his distaste for hunters, the contents of the quest don't come off as a walk in the park, but the pay is enough to make up for that. I guess it's a test of both your strength and etiquette, take it.
A named quest was a quest that was designated to a specific hunter or party. Receiving a named quest was proof that a hunter had become well-known, was trustworthy, or had recognizable strength. Named quests tended to be difficult, but paid out hefty sums, and, depending on the client, could even bring someone prestige. When I received my first named quest, everyone congratulated me for it. I, of course, declined the quest because it seemed dangerous. This was a formal quest done through the Explorers Association. As the client was a noble, I had to choose my words wisely. With a serious expression, I confirmed the most important thing. And this quest can be accepted by anyone?
Are you out of your mind?
This was a quest from a noble who disdained hunters. This was likely a chance for the association to show Earl Gladys how useful hunters could be, but I wanted no part of it. I didn't need to hear the contents of the quest to know that it was beyond what I could tolerate. On top of that, a quest like this could only be a hassle for someone looking to retire from treasure hunting. I pretended to give it some serious thought and then fell back on my usual tactics. Right now, only 2 others from my party are available. It's not that I don't want to take this quest or anything, but wouldn't it be better to leave this to Ark? I tried to gauge Gark's reaction while I spoke. He let out a deep sigh, and behind him, Kana gave a pained smile. When Gark spoke, it was in a calmer voice than I had expected.
You should take this quest. Krai, you haven't taken a single quest this term, have you?
Ah, my quota? That time already?
This isn't a laughing matter.
Hunters belonging to the Explorers Association were required to meet a quota adjusted for their level. They could do things like delve into treasure vaults, exterminate powerful monsters and phantoms, or complete quests brought in by outsiders. If they failed successively to meet these quotas, they would be disqualified as a hunter and be expelled from the Explorers Association. Initially, these quotas were implemented simply to prevent a proliferation of hunters in name only, people registered as hunters but not engaged in any relevant activities. The quotas were low enough that the average hunter didn't even need to acknowledge them. Exceptions were made for those with injuries or other sufficient reasons for taking a break. Even if someone failed once to meet their quota, they'd be fine if they fulfilled it during the next term. As a result, many hunters outright forgot that this system existed. However, this system was hell on people who didn't undertake quests, people such as myself. As their leader, I accumulated accolades semi-automatically from the actions of first steps in Grieving Souls. Quotas, however, could only be filled by things you were personally involved in. The difficulty of a quota was based on your level. I wrinkled my brow and thought hard, but I couldn't remember what my quota was. Right. I probably never learned it in the first place. How many terms has it been?
3 terms, you moron! Damn it. Krai, you're gonna get expelled.
1 term was half of a year, so, according to my calculations, it had been a year and a half since I had done anything. Come to think of it, I remember having this conversation both half a year prior and 1 year prior.
We don't think you've been idle. But as far as outward appearances go, you're the only hunter not taking quests.
No need to apologize to him, Kana. If he wants to hand off all his accolades, that's his business.
But I have been idle. For instance, the carcass collection in White Wolf's den was handled by Tino and her party, and it was Sven and his party who investigated the anomaly. Why would I try to take credit after I had foisted those quests onto others? Furthermore, quests often had rewards set beforehand. My participation would only decrease the amount allotted to the other hunters. I was technically a level 8, and that meant I would get a large payout, further lowering the value of the rewards granted to the others. Self-deprecating, if I could just register for a quest with other hunters without decreasing their pay, then I'd go for it. But that wasn't the case. I understood that I was a no-good human being. I foisted quests onto people, I buried myself in debt, and I left the management of the clan to Eva. However, I wasn't so shameless as to cut into someone else's pay.
It would be unprecedented for a level 8 to be expelled for not reaching their quota. So doesn't this sound like a good chance to prevent that? And I know if we didn't call you out here, you'd never come on your own.
Gark himself brought me to the association building. Talk about VIP treatment. I'm so sorry about the trouble I'm always causing. Still, I had absolutely no motivation to do this. Really, as far as I was concerned, being expelled from the Explorers Association was just fine by me. Even if I was going to start taking quests, I would do easier ones, not this named quest from the Earl. On top of that, I held the naive belief that even if I failed my quota, Gark would do something to brush it under the rug. Min excellence. It's self-deprecating, yeah, I'm no good. Someone please put in a request for a miniature imperial capital recreated, with mirages. The truth is, I've got a lot on my plate right now.
Oh, Krai, you always have a lot on your plate.
Ah, and what are you wrapped up in this time?
His lips twisted and his cheeks twitched. It was a smile meant to overwhelm. That smile, he can tell I'm lying. I glanced at the calendar on the wall. There were still 3 months left in this term. Whatever the case, even on the off chance I were to take a quest, I couldn't take one from a noble. Failure was not an option when it came to them. There was nothing I could do on my own. I had to do whatever I could to buy time until the rest of Grieving Souls came back. I had just gotten my hands on a fun new relic, and yet this headache just had to arise. I looked at the cup of tea before me, swallowed its insipid contents in one gulp, and then offered up some insipid words. Well, there's still time, and I have plans of my own. I'll do what I can to see if I can fit it into my schedule.
This is an important quest. You've got 1 week to decide. If you don't come to me by then, I'll come to you. Right for now, I'll give you the file we got from the House of Gladys.
I don't need it right now. I'll come get it when I'm ready. I had allies I could rely on. I didn't take any pride in it, but I could kowtow before Ark so that he might accompany me on a quest. The rules of the Explorers Association had their loopholes. I knew I could do something about the quota. My problem was how to brush off the named quest Earl Gladys had so graciously sent my way.
Oh, that's right. This is the first time Earl Gladys has ever put out a named quest. We plan to send along a member of the association for support. They'll do everything they can to stay out of your way. Is that fine with you?
Yeah, it's fine. But I've got a lot to do, and I still haven't decided whether I'll accept the quest. I'm no good at dealing with nobles. Nothing could be more reassuring than having a pro come along. Still, I hadn't done anything, and I was already tired. I decided I would return to my room and play with Mirage Form while trying to come up with a good idea. As I walked across the lobby of the association building, I rotated my shoulders, which had gone stiff from all my nervousness. Because of the odd hour, there was hardly anyone in the usually bustling lobby. When I first came to the Capitol, the association building was an imposing place, but even I managed to get used to it after 5 years. There was the quest board. I gave it a sideways glance as I passed it by. There was the news board. I gave it a sideways glance as I passed it by. There was the bounty board. I gave it a sideways glance as I passed it by. I already knew that there was nothing I could do to fulfill a level 8's quota all by myself. I walked about the lobby, and I checked in front of the counter, the appraisal desk, and the library, and still didn't find what I was looking for. I let out a deep sigh. I was looking for protection. To be more specific, I was looking for hunters with the mark of first steps who might help me. As a general rule, I didn't like going outside by myself. The roads you took to go from the Explorers Association to our clan house were often crowded, and it was just about guaranteed that I wouldn't be attacked going between the two buildings. But I still didn't want to risk it. When I would leave the clan house for my own purposes, I'd find a good enough bodyguard and give them a good enough reason to come along with me. In other words, I only went out when I had protection. However, after being abducted by Gark, I was left with few options but to go home unaccompanied. On the way to the association, it had been fine because Gark was with me, but I would have to brave the return trip by myself. Of course, I was equipped perfectly. I was covered head to toe in relics, but that was more of a placebo. Good grief! I wish Gark wouldn't always call upon me so suddenly. It wasn't even that urgent. I know about my quota. He doesn't need to tell me. I jangled the chain at my waist and peeked out the lobby door to the world outside. In front of the association building was a street wide enough for multiple carriages to pass through. Merchant carriages bustled this way and that, and pedestrians squinted in the blinding sun. Nobody seemed to be feeling the same unease that I was. The scenery alleviated a bit of my tension. It was strange for a hunter, which I technically was, to be so nervous when even civilians were without fear. I guess I have no choice. Surely nothing's going to happen. I puffed up my chest and put on a calm facade before mustering my courage and taking a bold step outside. Within Zebrudia, a decent amount of prestige came with being a high-level hunter. The term hunter encompassed a group of people with widely varying jobs, levels of experience, and specialties. Even still, hunters around or above level 5 were considered first-rate and would be contacted by countries, nobles, large trading companies, and the like. The higher their level, the more weight they had to throw around. It was also around level 5 that hunters began to attract fans. This naturally included people like Ark, who was the descendant of heroes, but even someone as violent as Liz had fans. In the golden age of treasure hunting, hunters were both warriors as well as a sort of idol. This sort of fame was one of the many things that could bring a hunter abundant wealth and honor. On the other hand, I, who had become a level 8 through mysterious contrivances, had almost no fans to speak of. This was because once I realized I was beginning to draw attention, I sensed danger and began to hide my face as much as I possibly could. While my face had never been in the newspaper, it wasn't like I could keep every last person from knowing my countenance. There were a few people who could recognize me, but by and large, the true identity of the 1,000 Tricks remained unknown. The other 2 level 8s in the capital were among the numbers who didn't know my face, something I was sure few other high-level hunters could claim. This was all so I could avoid making the sort of, enemies that came with being a high-level hunter. This included bloodthirsty maniacs like Luke, who would challenge someone to a duel the moment they learned they were strong. This also included criminals who held a grudge because it had been hunters who caught their cohorts. There were criminal organizations that would specialize in going after hunters' relics, and there were bottom feeders looking to ride off hunters' coattails. I could spend all day listing all the enemies of hunters, and unlike other high-level hunters, I didn't have the strength to deal with these nuisances. Self-deprecating, who could blame me for hiding my face and taking a bodyguard when I went outside? I would equip as many relics as I could, and I would avoid uncrowded streets as much as possible. I was a chicken, but I didn't think anyone would understand that. Very, very carefully, I made my way to the clan house. I wanted to hide my face, but under these circumstances, doing that would only make me stand out more. Unfortunately, I still wasn't at the point where I could use mirage form to disguise my face. With the reversible face, this had been possible from the beginning, but this wasn't a matter of the relic's strength, just what it was and wasn't made for. Fortunately, nobody was looking my way. When it came to looking like your average civilian, I was second to none. Liz once said to me, "You're incredible, Krai baby. It's almost like you're a normal person." That's how good I was. Of course, my levels of mana material were almost as low as you could get, and I didn't even carry myself like a warrior. That's because I wasn't a warrior. While thinking these pointless thoughts, I walked along the street when, suddenly, a hand was placed on my shoulder from behind. A shiver ran down my spine, and I slowly turned around.
Krai, it's been some time.
Yeah, it's been a while. The cordial person behind me was an effeminate young man with an icy gaze and blue hair. I placed his age as being the same or a bit below Tino's. He was dressed like a civilian and didn't wear any notable protective gear or carry a weapon. That simply made his sharp gaze all the more unnerving. But even more than his appearance, something was bothering me. "Who are you?"
I'm sorry to bother you all of a sudden. It pains me to say this after not speaking with you for so long, but there's something I'd like to discuss with you.
"Who are you?" Without really thinking, I had said it's been a while, but I didn't remember this person at all. I've said it before, but there weren't many people to whom I could match a name to a face. However, I didn't think he was a member of First Steps. For some reason, there was a rule in our clan that I personally meet every new recruit. That I didn't know his name wasn't too strange, but I had trouble believing I would forget someone's face. From the sound of it, I was acquainted with this young man in some way or another, and it didn't seem like a case of mistaken identity. I wondered if he might be a fan of mine, but I immediately dismissed that idea. He had a smooth face and frigid blue eyes. He was a handsome man with a cold aura, not the type who would join our party. "Who are you?"
Given the timing, I imagine you already have an idea of why I'm here.
"Who are you?" I decided to put on a mellow smile in spite of my confusion while the young man continued to chatter. I wished he had introduced himself, or at least wore a name tag like Chloe did. "You think I'm going to remember you? I barely remember my own clan members."
I know that Gark called you on business, so I won't take too much of your time. If you could just come with me, Krai?
I see. What a coincidence. I was just thinking I need to meet with you too. The young man looked surprised. I had decided to grin and go with the flow 100%. I had no idea who this person was, but they didn't seem like they would just casually walk away if I tried to turn them down. No way I could tell him I didn't remember his name. And self-deprecating, if I was bullish like Liz, I could just tell the man I didn't remember him. But, unfortunately, I was a wishy-washy man. It also helped that I didn't share Liz's bloodthirst. The young man briefly looked caught off guard, but he quickly returned to this original demeanor.
I should known you'd understand Thousand Tricks. Well then, please come with me. This isn't a conversation to have while standing around. Perhaps a nearby cafe would...
This is it. I wasn't against accompanying this man, on second thought I was, but I had no intentions of going alone, even if it was just to talk, even if this was just an unarmed younger man. I was hoping he would talk with me on my way to the clan house, and thus by my protection. Sorry, could we stop by my clan house? It's right over. A sudden interloper cut me off.
There you are, Artie. You just ran off so suddenly. Huh? Did you find him?
From the other side of the street came a young girl with hair blonde like sunlight. She had large green eyes and skin bereft of a single wrinkle. Her outfit wasn't particularly noteworthy, which made me assume she wasn't a hunter. Of course, I didn't recognize her either. The young man, called Artie, maintained his cool expression even after hearing the girl's bright voice.
Ah, Mary, it seems Krai was looking for us as well. It looks like he'll come with us.
Oh, thank you so much, Krai. I'm so glad. This means one less worry on my mind.
The girl named Mary placed a relieved hand on her chest. It seemed that whatever that worry was on her mind was now going to be on mine. Could you take it back? Mary and Artie. Even after hearing their names, I still didn't have a clue who they were. I felt like I was gonna barf. I have to do whatever I can to get myself out of this situation. We settled on a cafe near the clan house for our conversation. I had previously gone to this place during a date with Chloe, and I quite liked their black tea-flavored pound cake. I decided to take solace in the fact that I hadn't been abducted. You might think that I was worrying too much, but I had been carried off once or twice before. To make things worse, because I would offer so little resistance, everyone always assumed I had let it happen on purpose. Like hell! Who wants to get kidnapped? It seemed the refreshments were their treat, so, without hesitating, I ordered cake and black tea. I had to eat sweet things to restore my derelict brain. At the very least, I wanted to try to remember just who these people were. We finished ordering, and Artie narrowed his eyes.
I heard you weren't overly fond of sweet things.
After a brief pause, I said, "It's not good to be overly picky. Looks like my hard-boiled image is getting around." I shrugged my shoulders and masked my feelings of satisfaction. Artie's at best frigid gaze became sharp as a blade.
There's no use trying to bargain with someone such as yourself. I'll cut straight to the heart of the matter. We'd like to request your assistance.
Ugh, that's cutting a bit too much. I have no idea what you're on about. Still completely lost, I furrowed my brow.
The capture of Noctis Cochlear has indeed brought you one step closer to being a level 9. You also have Earl Gladys in your debt. Cleaning up the remnants will put you ahead of the other level 8s. However, that would be a bit, well, hasty. Wouldn't you agree?
I had no idea.
Initially, Kashik Tower was our prey. It's possible that Gark is considering changing out the old guard. Except, experience is one thing you lack when compared with the other level 8s. You needn't remind me of the steady growth enjoyed by grieving souls, but even with that in mind, I don't think you're ready for level 9. You may not think that someone from another clan should be pointing this out to you. However, it's still the conclusion we have reached. If you go on like this, we'll be looked down on.
Yeah, My tea arrived, and I took a sip of it. Delicious. While I was in total reality avoidance mode, Mary frantically tried to stop Artie.
Artie, you're being too confrontational.
This needed to be said eventually, Mary. Besides, I don't think we're capable of bargaining with the ingenious Thousand Tricks.
Looking fearful, Mary tried to gauge my expression, but I was entirely out of the loop. Artie's face was strained with tension. I grinned and waited for whatever they might have to say next, but no words came even after a long wait. Well, what to do? Even after hearing Artie's explanation, I only understood about half of it. Rather, I understood the words he was using, but we seemed to be thinking under different assumptions. Under these circumstances, a normal person might confirm every unknown point one at a time so as to clear up any misunderstandings. However, I had cultivated conversational skills that allowed me to keep a dialogue running smoothly even when I didn't get what was being discussed. So, basically, Artie's face became stiff and his eyes twitched. "Huh? I've barely said anything and I've already screwed up." Mary's lips quivered, like she was fighting back the urge to smile. I pretended not to see this. "You want me to pull back?"
Yes, that's what I said at the start.
I didn't remember ever pushing forward, but I decided to put it aside. From my experience, these sorts of situations always arose because Liz did something, and I was forced to share the responsibility.
KK Krai, it's true that we were needlessly biding our time. However, I still think it's improper that you would encroach on our domain. So, would you stop?
She seemed to be trying to guess what I was thinking. I folded my legs, stabbed my fork into my cake, and nodded. "Yeah, we'll withdraw."
Oh, really? Thank you so much.
Man, this cake's delicious. Artie and Mary both looked at me wide-eyed and hastily bowed their heads. Because I wasn't involved in whatever this was, pulling out from it was just fine by me. But I figured I would have to apologize to Liz or Citri, It had already happened many times before. I still don't understand it all, but I want to hurry up and go home. Gee, sorry you had to come all this way to talk to me. Truth is, I don't have much interest in getting to level 9 or in those, remnants? I'm still interested in this pound cake, though. I was tired of getting dragged around over matters I didn't know anything about. By the sound of it, Artie and Mary were bounty hunters or treasure hunters, but I was the leader of grieving souls only in name and didn't keep close tabs on their actions. If they have complaints, they should take them directly to... No, scratch that. It's just fine if they want to complain to me. With their objective fulfilled, Artie and Mary seemed to have loosened up a few notches. I saw an opportunity and used it to try to make clear my harmlessness. I was only called out by Gark because I haven't been fulfilling my quota. I think you've got the wrong idea.
Quota.
Air. It's not like I've been slacking. There just haven't been any good quests. If only I could meet my quota by collecting medicinal herbs. Artie and Mary both looked bewildered. I don't know where you learned my name and face, but I can assure you that I'm not the sort of person you think I am. The kerfuffle of the auction had settled down and I just wanted to rest for a bit. I let out a big yawn, and Artie suddenly stood up with a grim expression on his face. At the almost exact same moment, a shadow entered my vision.
Do you need something?
Quiet. I didn't come to talk to you.
From right behind me, I heard a very familiar voice. First Artie had sneaked up on me, now this. It seemed my ability to detect people was as bad as it could get. With practiced movements, hunters surrounded our table. Unlike Artie and Mary, this bunch were decked out in armor and carrying weapons. The other customers in the cafe all held their breath at the sight of the sudden intruders. From above me, I heard a growly voice.
It's been a bit thousand tricks. You really played us for fools the other day.
Who might you be?
You, level 8S, damn it. You sure don't seem to have a care in the world.
Sorry, I know who you are. Of course, I know who you are. The man behind me was a level 7 and surrounding our table were the members of Falling Fog, the people we did negotiations with regarding the auction. I was under the impression that our negotiations had ended on good terms, but for some reason, everyone was glaring at me while red in the face. Did I do something to warrant these glares? After all, in the end, the mask went to Eclair. But that wasn't my fault, and these guys should have known that. I turned my head upwards and looked at the owner of the voice. Arnold had the face of a demon. His eyes were alight with a burning hatred. His large exposed arms, multiple times the size of mine, were trembling as though aching to unleash their power at any moment. This looks bad. This looks very bad. I have no room to negotiate and no room to kowtow.
Level 8? You may be a higher rank than us, but even we won't take that last humiliation in silence.
We had a promise. I'll accept your challenge once you've defeated the rest of my clan. Wait, don't tell me he already defeated them. If he did defeat them, I'll surrender. If he didn't, I'll still surrender.
Shut up. To hell with the promise.
How brutish. Not that he showed the composure befitting his level back during our negotiations. It occurred to me that if things turned violent, I could be banned from the cafe and that would mean I'd lose a place of healing. I desperately tried to placate Arnold. Hey, calm down, calm down. Sure, we were at odds once before, but we made up after that, didn't we?
You've got a lot of nerve being so calm.
Just what is he so mad about? Arnold had a beastly expression, and he sounded like he was trying to fight back his rage.
Those women, they're not with you today.
Could you wait for me while I call them?
Sure, and they'll arrive to find you halfway to death's doorstep.
Oh, come on. Did Liz or one of the others do something? Arnold's pals simultaneously drew their weapons with little concern for all the attention we were attracting. My heart pounded so much it hurt. I was ready to wave the white flag. I couldn't think of any way I could turn the situation around. I didn't even have the emergency stock spell Lucia had prepared for me. Wait a minute. So, I remembered something. The aspiration manifest gifted to me by Citri had some sort of magic imbued into it. This relic could be stocked with a spell, but there was no way to confirm the nature of the spell once it was inside. It had a crystal that would indicate whether it was an offensive spell or the like, but nothing more than that. This one's crystal shined with a sort of black haze. When produced by a treasure vault, aspiration manifest shouldn't come with a spell already stocked, so this spell must have been input at a later point. I hadn't asked where she got it, but Citri had been at Night Palace not too long ago. If she got it there, then this spell was most likely from Lucia. From the looks of it, it wasn't Tyrant's order, the spell I had previously used on Arnold and his gang, but I guessed it was a pretty powerful one. I was wearing plenty of safety rings. Even a level 7 hunter probably wouldn't be able to get through all those before I released the stock spell. I made up my mind, let out a small sigh, and looked up at Arnold, who was angry for some reason. I'm not quite feeling up for a fight. Will you let me go if I kowtow?
What are you joking?
Did you forget what happened last time? If I release my power here, it may cause a bit of damage. I couldn't even win against one of Arnold's lackeys, but that didn't matter at the moment. But I wasn't lying when I said I didn't want to fight. It would have been more correct of me to say I wasn't at all up for a fight. I was a pacifist, not to mention I didn't even know what the spell even did. It was possible the spell's effects would extend all the way to the clan house. I wore a tranquil expression, but I really wanted to barf. I was just trying to stay out of the way. Why did these things keep happening to me? While I sat there in a withered state, Arnold closed in on me. However, after watching us in silence, Artie stood up and blocked Arnold's path.
You there, did I hear you correctly when you said you'd put our guest halfway to death's doorstep?
Get lost. I don't know who you are, but I'm only here for the 1,000 tricks.
Arnold was a head taller than Artie, who was on the slender side. Arnold was extremely intimidating, but Artie didn't seem afraid in the slightest. He just looked up with a disdainful glare.
A rustic, are you? Very brave of you to challenge a level 8. Krai, please leave this to us. Consider it thanks for overlooking our earlier discourtesy.
Yeah. I had been drawn in by what seemed an appealing suggestion, but I quickly began to reconsider. No, this is a terrible idea. Artie may not know it, but Arnold's a genuine level 7. Falling Fog also has the advantage of numbers. Artie won't stand a chance. But I guess there's not much I can really do about it. Artie saw that I was concerned and smiled slightly as he pointed to Arnold. When he did that, I noticed Artie was wearing a dull silver bracelet around his wrist. It bore an insignia with a 3-pointed staff. Artie glanced my way.
We may not be the most experienced, but worry not. Now engrave this well into your pitiful brain. My name is Artbaran. Artbaran Henning of Hidden Curse.
Artie? You said you wouldn't cause any discord. Likewise, I'm Mary Auden, also of Hidden Curse. To be clear, we're not from the same party as the Abyssal Inferno, however.
The moment I heard that, I felt like I had been knocked over. I finally remembered Artie, Artbarn, and Mary, and couldn't help but press my fist against my open palm. I must have looked pretty dumb, because everyone began to stare at me. I took a deep breath, looked around at everyone, and made an apologetic face. Sorry, but would you all mind if I went to the bathroom before we begin? Arnold must have known the name Hidden Curse because he seemed to be focused on Artie. I had been drawn into something I wanted no part of. Hidden Curse was one of the capital's oldest clans and highly selective of its recruits. What's more, their clan master, the Abyssal Inferno, was considered one of the capital's strongest magi and one of the capital's 3 level 8 S-, the same rank as me. I've had nothing but bad luck today. It's just been one thing after another. It was truly a good thing that we had chosen a cafe I had visited many times before. With a little bit of struggling, I managed to slip out the large window in the bathroom and make my escape. I let out a breath of relief. I no longer had any idea what was what. I hadn't expected Falling Fog to take such great offense over such a trifling matter, nor had I expected Hidden Curse to approach me. If I had seen this coming, I would have brought Citri or someone along with me. So Falling Fog and Hidden Curse are probably still staring each other down in the cafe right about now. As someone who was technically a high-level hunter who lived in the capital, I knew about any other hunters level 7 and above. I was fairly sure Mary and Art were below Arnold's level, but I wasn't too worried. Hidden Curse was a unique clan in that it was composed only of the most exceptional magi. Hidden Curse's activities tended to lean more towards academics, and the clan had strong connections with magic schools and militaries that recruited magi. A product of these academic tendencies was that Hidden Curse's members often had low levels relative to their actual strength. Besides, right in front of my own eyes, they said they'd handle Arnold, so my disappearance shouldn't have mattered. It would have been impudent of me to worry about the well-being of 2 elite magi from one of the capital's top clans. Are all hunters devoid of sense? We had been in a cafe filled with civilians, and yet they had been ready to throw down. Just remembering Artie's cold glare sent a shiver down my spine. Falling fog was terrifying, but hidden curse was even more so. Even if Arnold and his allies were all high level, they were just one party and couldn't hold a candle to the size, quality, and influence of hidden curse. I wasn't even paying attention to my surroundings. I was just trying to steady my breath and hurry to the clan house. The only thing on my mind was getting to a safe place as quickly as possible. Hidden Curse's clan master, the Abyssal Inferno, was a fearsome hunter. She was said to boast the highest destructive capabilities of anyone in Zeebrudia. She had the temperament of a blazing fire, and, unlike Liz, was also conniving. Not to mention we had previously had a tiny little schism. Forgetting about Artie and the others was my attempt at running from reality. The Abyssal Inferno had reached level 8 long before I had even dreamed of becoming a hunter. Her fight with us occurred during the founding of First Steps. I was looking for parties to join us and picked one semi-randomly, but at the time, Hidden Curse was already scouting this party. For some strange reason, that party chose to join First Steps, all without me being aware of these conflicting interests. We hadn't broken any laws, but hunters have this extremely obnoxious thing called pride. I was really losing my head back then. I was a level 6 and master of a new clan, and it was unbelievable that I would start a fight with a renowned level 8 hunter. Nor could I just change my mind and say I didn't want the party after all. Back then, I felt like barfing just about every day. I'd put it in my top 30 traumatic experiences since becoming a hunter. Fortunately, the commotion somehow settled down, and I managed to retain all my limbs, but my burning fear of Hidden Curse wasn't going away so easily. I thanked my lucky stars that I didn't refuse Artie's request. If we got into another fight with Hidden Curse, then that scary old lady might gleefully burn down the clan house. I arrived safely at the clan house. I could see my tired face reflected in the finely polished glass. I felt like staying holed up here for the foreseeable future. My head hurt at the thought of all the things I needed to do. I had the quota, the quest from Earl Gladys, our fight with Arnold. I had to figure out what Artie was talking about, and I still had a lot of improvements to make on my miniature imperial capital. The first two of those matters I figured someone would take care of somehow, so I figured my first priority was to check if Liz and Citri did anything to Akashic Tower or Arnold. I was really missing my allies. Having Ensem or Lucia around at a time like this would have been very reassuring. Even Luke would have been enough to put me at ease. Just what are they up to right now? I climbed up the stairs and took a seat in the clan master's office. Well, before searching for Liz, how about we work on that miniature imperial capital a bit more? As though waiting for that exact moment, the door burst open. The moment I activated Mirage form, Eva entered. She was short of breath and her cheeks were flushed with excitement, a rare state for her. In her hand was an ornate white envelope bearing the crest of Zeebrudia. She didn't even glance at my miniature capital and looked straight at me.
Krai, you finally received an invitation to the gathering of the White Blade. Congratulations!
I sat in confused silence. All of the day's commotion instantly vanished from my thoughts. The gathering of the White Blade was the most famous meeting among hunters in Zeebrudia. Only a small handful of hunters who had contributed to the Empire were allowed to attend. Receiving an invitation was said to be proof that one was recognized as being among the top hunters in the Empire. Most important, however, was the gathering's host, the Emperor himself.
I've heard that grieving souls are kept at a distance due to their poor reputation. But the other day,
Eva rapidly explained things to me, but I wasn't processing it at all. I could no longer make sense of anything. There were rumors surrounding whether hunters from other countries were ever invited, whether there were duels between hunters and elite knights, and whether delicious desserts would be served. I had absolutely no desire to attend. I didn't want to meet other high-rank hunters. I was a little curious about the desserts, but I would just have to let those go. I had no idea why these horrible things were happening to me. Why not Ark? They should have invited Ark. Really, what have I done? I haven't done anything. I'm not being modest. I seriously haven't done a single thing. I might have had a high level, but I wasn't actually anything special. I had already had a few run-ins that day, and then the invitation on top of all that. It shouldn't be possible to have such bad luck. I didn't hesitate. I immediately made up my mind.
Is something wrong, Krai?
I cleared my throat and mustered my strength. Sorry. I have a bit of an important matter to take care of and it'll keep me away from the capital for a while. It's a major honor to be invited to the gathering of the White Blade, but I don't know if I'll be able to attend. That goes for any other invitations as well. I hate to ask this, but could you proceed under that assumption? I'll try to be back as quickly as I can.
Huh?
I'm getting out of here. I've got my kowtow skills and excuse skills. Now I'll show you my graceful evasion skills.
He's gone? What do you mean?
Yes, sir, Arnold. This was in the bathroom.
One of Arnold's party members held out a piece of paper folded in two. Arnold ripped it out of their hand and unfolded it. The paper was the type used to write a check, but there was a message scrawled where the monetary amount would go. It said, "I'm busy, so I'm going home." Words failed Arnold.
It looks like he escaped through the bathroom window. Is he really a level 8?
Arnold's cheek twitched as he crushed the paper in his hand. He had never even imagined that the 1,000 tricks would run away. Arnold might have been prepared for this if he was after a civilian or an ordinary hunter, but this was someone of higher level and renown in the hunter's holy land. It was disrespectful for the 1,000 tricks to not give him the time of day, but Arnold was well acquainted with how powerful he was. Arnold tried to understand why a proud hunter would run away through a bathroom window before the fighting had even begun. But when he really thought about it, Arnold remembered that the 1,000 tricks had previously made those women fight on his behalf. He should have expected an outcome like this. Arnold looked up at two glaring individuals. When he first arrived at the imperial capital, Arnold did what many hunters would do and looked into the country's notable hunters, parties, and clans. Naturally, he had come across the name Hidden Curse. Hidden Curse was a powerful clan of magi, run by one of the capital's best hunters. Standing before Arnold were two members of this proud group. They were still young, but that didn't mean they could be trifled with. Falling Fog had the advantage of numbers. Typically, one might think that the 1,000 tricks had thrown the two magi under the bus. However, even after seeing the note on the check, there was no shift in the woman who introduced themselves as Art Baron. They let out a slight snort, showing no sign of unease.
What's with the face? Listen well, rustic. The truly strong don't draw their blades over trivial matters.
So the level 8S of the capital, they flee out the bathroom window?
And nobody sees a problem with this, he thought. He was after revenge against the Stifled Shadow and the others who had picked a fight with his party. With their leader, the 1,000 tricks, no longer at the cafe, there was no reason for him to stick around. Mary and Art Baron were well dressed, but not for combat. Except weapons weren't always necessary for an adept magus. Looking closely, Arnold could tell that Art Baron and Mary, who was wearing a strained smile, were on guard. In this regard, they were quite unlike the 1,000 tricks, who never looked in any way like he was prepared to fight. Arnold figured that for members of Hidden Curse, casting spells was as natural as breathing. However, magi were best at long-range attacks, no matter how strong they might be. A swordsman would have the upper hand at this range. There was no chance Arnold would lose in this situation. But such a victory would have no meaning to him, for he wasn't after Hidden Curse. The other members of Falling Fog kept their weapons drawn and awaited orders from Arnold. Art Baron kept their icy gaze on Arnold and continued speaking.
You said he fled? Don't be absurd.
No, he absolutely made a break for it.
He couldn't think of any other way to interpret the situation. It was such a smooth and practiced retreat that Arnold was more surprised than angry.
Didn't you read the paper? He didn't run. He's busy. A level 8 in the capital doesn't have time to waste. It was all he could do to even spare time for us. Don't get the wrong impression and assume he's weak. Someone like you just isn't worth his time.
How absurd, Arnold thought. In this land, hunters short on time just flee out the bathroom window. It made no sense to him. It didn't match up at all with the heroic images in his mind. Arnold knew the strange powers that the 1,000 tricks had, and that made it all the more difficult to understand why he fled. Shaking with fear, there was something he had to ask.
Then, in the same situation, would you flee out the bathroom window?
Don't tell me all hunters in the capital would do this, he thought. It was an honest question. Art Baron's eyes briefly widened, but then they put on a sardonic smile.
I still have a lot to learn. Krai isn't someone I could imitate.
Silence ensued.
Arnold, let's withdraw. We have no reason to waste time on these two.
Arnold gave him a sharp glare, but A was still looking at the two young magi.
We came here for the 1,000 tricks. If we get into a fight with Hidden Curse, we'll just be playing into his hand again.
Grieving souls had plagued them since coming to the capital. They took Falling Fog by surprise at the tavern one time and practically extorted them another. Between them and the two magi they had just met, it was obvious which one Arnold wanted to destroy. Looking around, he realized the cafe staff and customers were all looking at them fearfully. Some of the clientele had probably already run outside, perhaps to call for the knights. A was right, only a third-rate hunter would forget their objective and turn violent in this situation. They might have already been manipulated during the auction, but it still was in their interests to proceed with prudence. After quickly thinking it over, Arnold clicked his tongue.
Fine. For now, our sights are on him.
I'd run as far as I could. Deciding this made me feel very much at ease. Of course, I wouldn't go by myself. Outside the capital, there was the possibility of being assailed by monsters and phantoms. I heard it wasn't too dangerous as long as you stuck to the roads, but getting attacked wasn't something I wanted to risk at all. I had already been attacked multiple times in the past. Finding protection before going out had just about become second nature to me. If I was strong or capable of flying or something, then things might be different. But my low mana prevented me from going far with Night Hiker, and that relic could only be used at night. I began preparing to leave town. I left my office and was walking down the stairs when I ran into Liz. She was looking like a hardy hunter, as she always did. When she saw me, a smile blossomed on her face and she approached me.
Good timing, Crybaby. There's something I want your advice on.
I'm happy to offer advice, but this won't take long, will it? I didn't have much time. My first priority was getting away before my worries increased any further. The more I hurried, the more legitimacy was lent to my excuse for declining the gathering of the White Blade. It was a battle against time. I had to get out before Arnold lost all inhibition and came after me. I wrapped an arm around Liz's shoulders and spoke like we were discussing something clandestine. The advice can wait. Liz, do you have any plans for the immediate future?
Ha! Not really. Is something up?
This was the answer I had expected. Liz wasn't likely to turn down an invitation from me. I ditched the formalities and cut straight to the chase. I'm leaving the capital. Come with me? Liz looked at me with shock and then wrapped an arm around my waist. Her face was close to mine, and I could detect a faintly sweet aroma. Her moist lips opened faintly, and she spoke in a whispering tone.
Very well. What's our objective?
Our objective? To flee? To escape? To make a tactical retreat? Well, all of those are correct, but that's it. After mulling it over, I began to smile. A vacation, I guess. But keep it a secret, okay? Liz's eyes sparkled, and she wrapped her arms around me as though she was keeping all her excitement contained in that one movement. As always, her skin felt almost like it was on fire.
That's perfect! How many people are we gonna do in? Who else is coming? Just me. When do we leave? It feels like a million years since you left the capital with me.
We're not going to kill anyone. And that's too many questions. Having Liz on board was reassuring, but I figured the more protection I had, the better. I was leaving the capital, after all. That's it. Why not make it a clan trip? If I declined all those invitations, I couldn't bring the administrative staff along, but I thought it might be fun to bring all the hunters. If all the hunters of First Steps were gone, it would look like there was a good reason for my reclusiveness. A reason so good that I even turned down the gathering of the White Blade. I don't want to inconvenience anyone, but I would like to bring as many as possible. We leave today. Also, you're right. It has been a long time since I've left the capital.
Woo! I'm super excited! Can we bring T along with us?
Huh. Oh yeah, of course. As long as she agrees to come, that is. She had seemed really depressed after the incident with the mask. I wondered if perhaps we should just let her be. Liz gave me a bewitching smile. Was she really that excited to travel with me again? I wondered what sort of face she'd make if she knew that I thought of this trip as a means of avoiding reality. Because it was the middle of the day, only a small number of people were gathered in the lounge. Unfortunately, that didn't include the Starlights who'd previously charged my relics. It sure would have been helpful to have them along. At a table in the back, Ark's party members Isabella and Ewe noticed us and looked displeased about it. Ark himself was nowhere to be found. All right, I want them to come along with us, but how do I justify it to them? I'd lose their trust if I lied to them, but telling them the truth would invite its own problems. I didn't really think this through. While I was being fickle, Liz began to shout in high spirits.
Crybaby's leaving the capital for the first time in a while. He said we're taking a vacation. A vacation. He wants as many people as possible to come along. Is there Riemann who wants to come with us?
The lounge froze. I had told her to keep it a secret, yet she just went and yelled it out. Confused gazes fell on Liz and myself. They must have been wondering what I was thinking. Taking a vacation when I already spent so much time playing around in my office. My esteem had reached an all-time low. I wore a resigned smile while Liz continued on.
Wait, we're leaving immediately. This is only for people handy in a fight. We don't need any weaklings slowing us down. I'm so excited. I've been so worried I might be getting rusty.
There was an extraordinary gap between Liz's excitement level and that of everyone else. It wasn't the reaction I wanted, but it was too late to change that. I looked over to a table of guys playing cards and spoke to Lyle, who I was somewhat well acquainted with. Sorry about bringing this up so suddenly. You'll come, won't you, Lyle? Lyle quickly held his hands over his stomach and groaned with a strained look on his face. He moved his arms in an exaggerated manner, and his cards fluttered down to the ground. Sorry, Krai. I've got a sudden stomachache. I don't think I can go. Part of him looked like he was acting, but his complexion was deathly pale. Maybe he really wasn't feeling too good. I looked around at the other hunters at the table, and they all looked away simultaneously.
Sorry, CM, my sister's wedding is coming up. My grandmother's funeral is soon. My sword broke, and I'm waiting on a new one. Then what's that sword on the table?
Shut up. This is, it's a spare. Its blade is dull.
Ha! You were always saying that thing's your soul and whatnot. Quiet? Really? CM, I can't fight right now. You gotta believe me.
What's the matter, everyone? It's just a vacation. Let This Grieving Soul Retire by Chukikash, cast by Artale Studio. If you are interested in creating your own audiobooks, please check out our website at artale.ai. Now, enjoy the story. I checked the other tables and saw that the room had cleared out a bit. I turned around and caught sight of some hunters practically falling over each other as they rushed out of the lounge. Perhaps they had all remembered some sort of urgent business. Liz watched them go with a miffed expression. I decided to let them go and made my way over to Ark's party members. They weren't as strong as Ark, but it would still be a major waste to not bring them as protection. Isabella immediately turned the other way. Sitting across from her was the party's Saint E, who wasn't so blatant as Isabella but still kept her glance off of us. Hey, Isabella?
Absolutely not.
Hey, EU?
Please, go to Ark for matters concerning our party.
I'd be talking to Ark if I could. Isabella brushed back her long hair, folded her arms, and looked up at me.
I'll have you know we're on a break right now. Ark's visiting his family, and we're taking a reprieve from hunting.
Yeah, and we're going on a vacation.
A vacation to you, perhaps.
What's that supposed to mean? Sure, I invited everyone simply because I needed bodyguards just in case something happened. I didn't consider it work. It wasn't a total vacation, but it wasn't entirely work either. As I stood in befuddlement, Isabella rattled on like a machine gun. I had heard that in her homeland in the north, women tended to be more strong-willed, but I wondered if that might actually be true.
And what do you plan on fighting this time? Phantoms? Monsters?
No.
If it's not phantoms of monsters, then humans? You're gonna be fighting humans? How awful! I didn't train as a magus so I could fight people.
It's just a vacation, honestly. Isabella looked at me with complete distrust. EU also looked taken aback and moved away from us. In their lack of faith, I detected not just a lack of respect, but even disappointment. Liz darted in front of me and came to my aid.
Ha! Is that contempt I detect? If he says come, then come. If your safety means that much to you, then how about you just quit being a hunter?
That didn't aid me at all. Isabella stood up and began to open her mouth. But Liz, with a shimmer in her eyes, began to yell at her.
And what's even wrong with fighting humans? If you only deal with phantoms and monsters, you won't be able to fight against people when the time comes. It's good to kill a fellow human being once in a while. That's what Crybaby always says.
It's just a vacation. Just what sort of person do they think I am? I asked myself. I had returned to my office, but I couldn't clear the clouds over my head. Indeed, I had bad luck. Before even becoming a level 8, I had on many occasions been wrapped up in various spots of trouble. One time, a treasure vault appeared during a flower viewing outing, and another time an earthquake struck while exploring a cave. When exploring treasure vaults, I would often run into what were supposed to be bosses with low spawn rates. I had even run into an extremely difficult vault that moved about the entire world. When walking in a storm, a sudden bolt of lightning landed close to me. It hit the largest thing in the vicinity, which was Unsum. But even bad luck had its limits, and I was leaving the capital to avoid that bad luck. I had no plans on fighting phantoms or monsters, and I certainly didn't plan on killing any people. I had just wanted to invite some people on a vacation, but I guess they didn't trust a seasoned hunter's definition of vacation. I was ruminating over the lack of esteem I had when Eva entered the room.
Krai, I've reserved a carriage. It's a large armored carriage pulled by 6 platinum Mustangs.
Typically, when traveling as a party, we'd go in our own carriage. However, it was currently with Luke and the rest of Grieving Souls. Therefore, I asked Eva to procure a carriage, but the results took me by surprise. Platinum Mustangs were a monster with a strength of roughly 100 normal horses. As their name implied, they had platinum fur. They could run across any land, no matter how rugged the terrain, and were the best variety of horse out there. They naturally commanded an extraordinary price. But my bigger concern was that Eva procured a carriage pulled by 6 of them. A single platinum Mustang was enough to easily pull a large carriage. Isn't that a bit over the top? Platinum Mustangs and large armored carriages weren't typically used by clans.
Well, yes, but this way you'll be able to escape even if chased by a swarm of dragons.
I don't anticipate being chased by dragons. I realized it wasn't too strange that Eva had the wrong idea. I hadn't told her that this would be a vacation. Even still, I was pretty sure even the Emperor of Zebrudia rarely made use of 6 platinum Mustangs and an armored carriage. I couldn't even imagine how she got her hands on it all. I put my hand to my chin and pretended to think. I think we should go for a more discreet look. We won't need the armor, and 6 platinum Mustangs would be overkill. A normal carriage will do. Actually, a slightly shabby one would be better. Leaving the capital at a time like this was bound to cause trouble for Eva. I felt terrible that she had prepared us something so extravagant.
Yes, but very well.
She seemed like she wanted to say something, but in the end simply nodded with a look of dissatisfaction. I gave a vague smile and tried to make a joke. We gotta cut costs where we can, right?
Oh, a vacation. Of course I'll accompany you.
Citri was in the clan house's lab and accepted my invitation without a hint of displeasure. She seemed pleased with the idea, but without Liz's intense fervor. This is it. This is the reaction I've been hoping for.
Will armaments be necessary?
No, this is just a vacation. No weapons necessary. Actually, I guess you might want to bring the bare minimum necessary for self-defense.
Understood.
What a pleasant, agreeable response. I wished the other members of Grieving Souls would follow her example. Sutri's grinning expression grew cloudy and she looked at me with upturned eyes.
But I'm still working on my investigation into Akashic Tower.
Investigation into Akashic Tower? Is this what Artie and Mary were talking about? I was right. It looked like Citri did something without me knowing about it. It wasn't like I could understand what she did, so maybe it was a moot point, but I still wished she would tell me before doing anything dangerous. But it was too late for that now. Oh, you don't need to worry about that. I got Hidden Curse to take care of it.
Thank you so much, and forgive me for forcing you to go out of your way.
No, it all just fell into place. I mean, they asked me to leave it to them, so I figure they'll do a good job. Hidden Curse was an old plan. Citri might have been just as capable as any of their members, but they were more suited to large-scale investigations. Not to mention, I had no interest in Akashic Tower, nor did I want Citri doing anything dangerous. I had left it to Hidden Curse without asking Citri's opinion, and I was worried that might bother her. But that didn't seem to be the case. For a moment, I let myself be healed by Citri's grin. Further back, Talia was putting a flask over a flame and looking at us with a smile. I had found true restoration. Killiam was off to the side, standing still as a statue and creating an eerie atmosphere, but I could stomach that.
By the way, what's the objective of this vacation?
Objective? Can you guys not go on a vacation without some sort of objective? Maybe it wasn't so strange. Unlike me, Liz and Citri were busy people. Well, We could go to a hot spring?
Understood. This is for fire resistance, correct? Will there be magma?
Actually, we'll sort of be running away.
I see. So there's a chance we'll be pursued by dangerous foes.
That's right, Ava. You see, tried to prepare us a carriage pulled by platinum mustangs. How overboard is that? I told her we'd stick out like a sore thumb.
So we'll need to be discreet. By the way, is anyone else coming along?
I invited everyone at the lounge, but they all ran away. I couldn't believe it. Cetree seemed to puzzle that over for a moment, but her smile returned and she did her usual clap of the hands.
How fortuitous. I have 3 people I've been wanting to take for a test run. I only just gained their cooperation, so I've got my concerns about their capabilities. But I could suffer to lose them. Please leave the preparations to me.
Looks like Citree's got some people she can bring. That makes sense. Unlike me, she has lots of acquaintances. Her unique choice of words bothered me, but I figured it'd be fine to leave it to Citree. Then, I hit upon a good idea. While we're out and about, why not stop by to see Luke and the rest of Grieving Souls? Aren't they about to head home? It would be my first excursion in some time. I didn't plan on entering any treasure vaults, but I saw nothing wrong with going to meet them outside of one. Killiam flexed its well-developed biceps. Citree's smile suggested that she concurred with my idea.
No. Master Lizzie, that wasn't the real me.
The curtains were drawn tight. Tino lay on her bed and writhed about with her face buried in a pillow. She felt terrible. She often felt bad after Lizzie's strenuous training, but this went beyond that. At least after Lizzie's training, she didn't have enough remaining energy to be worrying about things. The cause of this dejection was the mask that her master made her wear the other day. Evolve Greed. It was a horrific relic that he had gone so far as to participate in the auction to try to obtain. Tino had never heard of or seen the relic before.
As her master had said, the mask granted Tino power, but it granted more than just that. When she closed her eyes, she could remember it vividly. The power that flowed into her the moment the tendrils connected to her, the feelings of invincibility and intoxication. The mask incited both strength and fervor. At that moment, Tino was the center of the world. Or to be precise, Tino and her beloved master were the only ones in the world. No, master, that wasn't my doing. The mask, it talked on its own, of its own will. She wanted to crawl into a hole and then die down there. Tino twisted and turned in regret, but she wasn't feeling any better. She was even taking a break from her usual independent training. At this rate, she'd never become a splendid hunter like her master. She began to loathe herself for her failures. Milking on the mask cut Tino off from her sanity. If it hadn't, she wouldn't have declared war on Lizzie and City. But Tino was aware of something. That relic was made to enhance things. As the person who wore it, she understood this well. Evolve Greed could enhance something so drastically that it seemed like something else, but the source of Tino's words and actions were the feelings deep down within her. Her head had been clear, the mask had whispered to Tino of its capabilities. In other words, Tino had, of her own will, declared who but me is truly fit for master, in front of Lizzie, City, and, worst of all, her master. At the time, Tino had been filled with confidence. She was certain that she had been chosen by her master. The mask had given her enough power to overcome her usual timidness and be resolute. Even after the mask had been ripped off, those memories remained fresh in Tino's mind. Hence her wish to die. Her master and the Smart Sisters had laughed it off and forgiven her, but that didn't make her feel any better. I don't believe any of those things I said. Lizzie, please forget all about it. I don't think you're unfit for master because your chest is small and it probably won't grow any further. City, I don't think I'm a better long-term choice because I'm younger than you. Tino was only 3 years younger than City after all. What possessed her to brag about that to her master? She didn't have anything that would let her compete with the Smart Sisters, who were both longtime friends of her master's. It was the fault of that horn, the one that sprung up when Tino put on the mask. It must have been an antenna that caused her brain to receive all sorts of weird signals. She could no longer face her master or the Smart Sisters. If Lizzie hadn't knocked her down and ripped the mask off, Tino definitely would have done something abhorrent to her master. Rumors supposedly had a lifespan of 75 days, in which case Tino couldn't face her master for that long. She also couldn't approach the clan house during that duration. It was possible word of her disgraceful display had spread. She didn't think Lizzie and her master would say anything, but Citree's expression suggested she wasn't to be trusted so easily. She had stepped on the tiger's tail and she had no idea how to earn its forgiveness. It would surely take more than a simple apology. It'd most likely involve being an accomplice to some crime that her master would find despicable. Really? It was possible her master already found her despicable. That relic was no doubt a powerful one. If Tino had been able to control her emotions better, she definitely wouldn't have made such a disgrace to herself. Her master was always so nice, that must have been what he expected of her. This meant that Tino had failed one of the 1,000 trials. It was her fault for getting ahead of herself after finding a relic that she was sure her master would appreciate. He and Lizzie were always telling her to never let her guard down, but she had failed to put that lesson into practice. Tino was a failure as a hunter, and yet she had been filled with confidence when the mask had been put on her. It was all the fault of that horn.
She was spinning about in a pit of self-loathing when she heard a small noise at the front door. She raised her head a bit and buried herself under the blankets. The door was locked, and she wasn't in the mood to see anyone. She hadn't left her bed in a bit, so she was in no condition to be meeting anyone. She quickly poked her head out from the blankets, and at the same time, her bedroom door was broken down. A hot wind rushed into her once sealed-off room. Lizzie, whom Tino had been wanting to avoid, stood in the doorway. Tino had worked so hard to save up the money for this house. Who else would destroy it just to see her?
Hey, T! Get up already! We've got places to be!
Lizzie?
Unaffected by Tino's earlier disgrace, Lizzie looked just as she always did. A light with the same threatening glimmer that they showed when Tino's training left her face down in the dirt. Tino had thought that her embarrassment would drive her to flee if she came face to face with Lizzie. But instead, her embarrassment faded away.
What's this about? Where are we going?
We're going on a vacation with Krai Baby. We're leaving immediately, so hurry up and get ready.
I can't do that. I can't show my face before Master after I made such a disgraceful display.
Lizzie ignored Tino's protests and ripped the blankets off the bed, unconcerned that Tino was still clinging to them. When Lizzie realized that Tino was still attached to the blankets, she began to slam both against the floor. Tino's bones crunched loudly. She let out a groan from the blunt pain, but that didn't deter Lizzie in the slightest.
Ha! Save your arguments and do as I told you. Besides, Krai Baby sees your disgraces on the regular. What difference does it make now? Come on! Come on! Come on!
I can't. I'll die of embarrassment.
Some things just weren't possible. Tino had listened to her mentor until now, but this time was different. Seeing that Tino refused to let go, even after being slammed into the floor multiple times, Lizzie let up.
Did I get through to her? She let herself relax a bit.
Lizzie looked at Tino like she was looking at a goblin who didn't know how to give up even after their allies were all killed.
Krai Baby said to bring you. You've got 5 minutes. If you're not ready by then, I'll drag you out even if your hair's still a mess.
Huh?
That woke Tino from her stupor. She felt like cold water had been dumped on her. If Lizzie said she would do something, she would do it. If she went out like this, Tino would feel even more ashamed than she did the other day.
Double wait. 5 minutes isn't...
4 minutes left.
Tino panicked.
I don't have time to be thinking. She cast aside the blankets and began to get ready in a flurry.
The sun was setting, casting a thin shadow over the capital. A single carriage was in front of the clan house. It was a nondescript box-shaped carriage pulled by 2 horses. It lacked the first step's insignia, proving that it wasn't property of the clan. This meant the carriage's passengers wouldn't be immediately obvious. Eva, who had gone beyond her usual duties and procured the carriage, tried to gauge my reaction.
You said you wanted something that wouldn't stand out too much?
Yeah, this looks good. Trusting Eva had paid off. Carriages usually had to be reserved in advance. The Explorers Association could be a bit more flexible, but this didn't look like one of theirs. I had asked her not even a day in advance, but she delivered with spectacular results.
It's a rental, so there will be a fee if it's destroyed. While it's not an enormous sum.
I won't destroy it.
Okay, but how many carriages have you destroyed thus far?
Eva looked at me with a sharp gaze. It seemed she had absolutely no faith in me. They weren't destroyed, they just broke down. It wasn't my fault. There was nothing I could have done. I once thought of carriages as sturdy things. I later learned just how frail they are. Even one reinforced with metal plating wouldn't last a minute against the attacks of a swarm of monsters or phantoms. Of course, we weren't intentionally catching the ire of monsters, nor were we charging into their homes, but treasure hunting was still a dangerous job. Not too long prior, I had even been denied a carriage insurance plan specifically intended for hunters. It was the strangest thing. Eva looked over my relic-covered attire with a scrutinizing gaze and spoke in a fast, clinical tone.
It would be of great help to me if you were to return as quickly as you can.
Of course. There wasn't a hint of antipathy in her eyes. Eva was wasted on a person like me. Yeah, I'll return as quickly as I can. You bet I will. But I didn't say just when that'll be. My return would, at the very least, be after the conclusion of the Gathering of the White Blade. When's the Gathering of the White Blade?
Huh? Oh, it's the same every year, so 3 weeks from now.
3 weeks, huh? That's further out than I expected. This is looking like it could be a long vacation. That should be more than enough time to meet up with the others. It might be nice to actually take some time to rest. In the end, I failed to find any other clan members to join us. I guess I couldn't complain. I brought it up out of the blue, after all. Still, what terrible timing everyone had funerals, weddings, or just wasn't feeling well. Depending on how you looked at it, you could also see fewer people as a good thing. It meant we only needed one carriage.
Krai, forgive my tardiness.
From the other side of the road, Citri ran to us in traveling clothes. She was in a green robe and had a large gray bag on her back. Behind her, carrying a sturdy-looking trunk and wearing a robe that was meant to be discreet, but maybe have the opposite effect, was Killiam. Preparing for a journey, gathering supplies and information on treasure vaults was always Citri's job. Luke and Liz were especially prone to forgetting things, so it fell to Citri to assist on that front. The bag on her back wasn't an infinite storage magic bag, but it was still a mysterious thing that held everything you could want. Citri was second to none at support. I smiled and looked back on good memories when Citri turned around.
Krai, allow me to make some introductions. Meet our new associates.